I don't mind wearing. What do you guys want to do?
I don't mind with either.
There's some routine things we actually have to go through because we didn't.
That's fine.
Well, let's call this meeting to order. It is 5:44. Let's do a roll call.
Judge Alfonso Ornelas, present. Andrew Carranco,
Present.
Roque Vela Jr., absent. Dr. Maria Reyes,
Here.
present. Christina Laurel Hale,
Present.
present. Beth Killam, not present. Henry Sauvanet, not present. Jack C. Byham,
Here.
Anya Judith Benavides,
Here,
present. You have a quorum.
and I would like to just put on the record that Mr. Vela asked to be formally excused. He had a prior commitment today.
I'd also like to ask for Henry Salvini to be excused.
There's a motion, I guess a second as amended.
Yeah, amended.
To excuse.
Yeah.
To excuse all absent members?
That would be nice.
Why not?
I didn't know that was an option.
It's to excuse them so they don't get their pay docked, but we're not paid, so
No big deduction.
it's just a courtesy.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
The next item is public comments, and sadly, we don't have anybody. Please, people, come over. You're invited. All right, the next item is, I looked at the camera in case you were wondering who I was talking to. The next item is the approval of the minutes. And the minutes are on your desk, if you just want to look through them.
I motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Tanya seconds it. Minutes are approved.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
All right, Article 5. We're gonna be looking at discussion with possible action to amend the city charter. Article 1, anybody?
Chairman, I wanted to mention, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
we just have all the articles. Hold on, this is one. Okay, yeah, we have all the articles for the charter. You're welcome to just left it open. Really, you can go wherever you guys want. And we can try to provide information through legal. I'll blame legal. And so, if you want to revisit certain articles, we can start there.
Where did we leave off last time?
We
We
finished.
We
reading.
finished,
Okay.
and then we're gonna start revisiting some of the articles that we started
Where did
initially.
we leave off, as in, there was certain that we started at the beginning, like, where was the first one?
If I may make a suggestion, we did leave, I believe it was from Article 1 almost in its entirety. We chose to revisit, and I believe that was up to section 2.1. So it'd be Article
1
1,
and 2.
Article 2. We abstained from doing any action on those because I believe on 2.5, we made a motion to offer the mayor a vote, and that was put forth by Professor Byam. That said,
That was approved.
that was approved.
That was approved.
So that was the very first one. After that, we proceeded to go through each one and making approvals there too. I would make a suggestion, Madam Chair, that we revisit Article 1 through 2, just to formally give our consent to those portions. And I do believe, if we look back at our notes, there were a few questions that we wanted to revisit on all those, on various sections here, that the city management was going to offer some suggestions. All that said, we may benefit us to go read through these once again.
Yes. Anybody opposes to that? No? You wanna read section 1 and 2 again?
I think Miss Martha has her work cut out for her.
Yeah, she thought she wasn't going to read today.
Article 1, Incorporation, Form of Government and Powers of the City, Section 1.01, Incorporation, the inhabitants of the city of Laredo and Webb County, Texas, residing within the corporate limits as now established, and as hereafter extended shall continue to be and are hereby constituted a municipal body, politic, and corporate in perpetuity under the name of City of Laredo, hereinafter referred to as the city, and having such powers, privileges, rights, duties, and immunities as are herein provided. Everything. Section 1.02, Form of Government. The municipal government provided by this charter shall be known as the council-manager government, pursuant of its provisions and subject only to the limitations imposed by the state constitution and laws and this charter. All powers of the city shall be vested in an elective council, herein referred to as the council or the city council, which shall enact local legislation, adopt budgets, determine policies, and appoint the city manager, who shall execute the laws and administer the government of the city. All powers of the city shall be exercised in the manner prescribed by the state constitution and laws, this charter, or the council's adopted ordinance. Section.
Mr. Chairman, do you wanna go one by one and just, get information on that particular section and then move on, or do you want all of them read and then wanna revisit them? How do you all
Well,
want?
I believe we can actually, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I have in my notes which ones we ask
Good.
to revisit.
Lead us to them.
Yeah, so the first, but
That'll be
I'm not
easier
even
on
sure,
Martha.
do you
Get
have
the
it?
information?
Yeah,
We actually have we're working on a cumulative report, and the city attorney is actually finalizing it. So when we got notice of,
so then the question would be,
meeting right now,
what can we do today?
We can do anything. We're,
Yeah, But I'm,
There's that gavel right there.
Yeah.
what we may suggest is reading through the entirety of Article 1. I think most of these are in accordance with the state of Texas, as far as I understand, but we never formally said okay to these things. We said we revisit in the future. So perhaps we read through Article 1, give our consent as a committee, because these are relatively straightforward. It's on Article 2 where we started to have some very serious questions about certain aspects there, and I'm sure your notes would confirm that. Although I do recall perhaps on Article 1, we did have a question on form of government, which you wanted to
Dr.
revisit.
Reyes had brought up that, she wanted to look at different,
on the different
forms of government,
Forms of
and I know
government.
someone was gonna put some stuff together.
and that's all part of the report, unfortunately, that's.
There was even a subcommittee formed, as I recall.
As I recall.
Did you ever meet as a subcommittee?
No?
Oh.
We haven't met.
Well, perhaps we can just read through this, give our assent, given the amount of folks who are here right now, and that's fairly innocuous as we wait for other folks to come and join us in their due time.
Sure.
I'd like to offer my assistance to Martha. Martha, if, you know, it's this is lots of reading. If you want me to help, I can help if that's permissible to the chair and to the rest. I'm happy to read, as well.
Yeah,
Along with, like, if you read and I read, or I can read, it doesn't matter. Whatever's most comfortable for
It's
you.
all real.
Oh, we take
Out
turns.
loud. Yeah.
You want me to read section 2?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, it's the wrong one.
What's that?
Do we finish reading through one?
102? Yeah.
So, section 2.01?
Yeah,
Is that-
sure.
Or 1.02.
Oh, 1.02. Okay, very good.
3, because she read 1.02.
101, you wanna read 102?
Sure.
I see, I'm
1.03?
the only one paying attention to you.
Okay, section
Be
1.03.
recommended by the professor.
Powers of the city. The city is and shall continue to be a home rule city with full power of local self-government, including the right to amend this charter as provided by the state constitution and laws, which shall prevail if there is a conflict. It shall have all the powers possible for a home rule city under the state constitution and laws, as fully and completely as though they were specifically enumerated in this charter. Section 1.04, Annexation. The city council shall have the power by ordinance to fix the boundary limits of the city of Laredo and to provide for the alteration and the extension of said boundary limits and the annexation of additional territory in accordance with applicable provisions of the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas. the city council shall have the power by ordinance to contract with owners of the land for its voluntary annexation. Section 1.05. Yeah?
Yep.
One?
Section 1.05, construction, the powers of the city under this charter shall be construed liberally in favor of the city as a home rule city, and the specific mention of particular powers in the charter shall not be construed as limiting in any way the general powers stated in this article. Section 1.06, intergovernmental relations. The city may exercise any of its powers or perform any of its functions by contract or otherwise, jointly or in cooperation with any state and civil authority, including the United States and foreign states. As a general principle, the city of Laredo shall endeavor to create an environment of governmental cooperation in the county of Webb, the public school districts, and any other governmental entity or political subdivision of the state of Texas that ups or is located within the city of Laredo. Such cooperation shall promote a seamless, efficient, effective, equitable, and accountable delivery of services to all citizens and residents of the city of Laredo, and to the extent allowable by law to those citizens that fall under the extraterritorial, there you go, jurisdiction of the city of Laredo. This endeavor shall be memorialized in the form of intergovernmental contracts, joint services agreements, or memorandums of understanding, which will call for cooperation and sharing of services and resources among the governmental bodies herein mentioned. Section 1.07, notice of claim. The city of Laredo shall not be responsible on account of any claim for damages to any person or property unless the person making such complaint or claiming such damage shall, within 180 days after the time at which it is claimed such damages were inflicted upon such person or property, file within the city secretary a true statement under oath as to the nature of the character of such damages or injuries, the extent of the same, and the place where the same happened, the circumstances under which happened, the conditions causing same, with a detailed statement of each item of damages and the amount thereof. And if to be personal injuries, giving a list of the witnesses, if any known to finds, who witnessed such accident.
If I just make, can I just make a comment to legal?
Yeah.
Because if I'm not mistaken, there's a new decision that was passed by the Supreme Court having to do with this. And it was,
On that section down there?
yeah, this section, where, because of the fires and floods, people are going to be able to sue the state of Texas, probably cities, if damages were, took place because of decisions the city or the state took. You may want to look into that.
Sure.
When it comes to changes to this, because I'm excited, but I don't want to be overly excited. Okay, just wanted to let him know that in case that.
Thank you.
Is there anything that the commission wants to review in this section, section 1?
I would like to ask a question. This is more symbolic, 1.06 intergovernmental relations. Whereas working with the state of Texas, there are certain contractual obligations as enshrined in the Constitution that we must follow. I do have a question on the symbolic intergovernmental relations question, and it'd be, is there anywhere here where we may be able to add, it does say that it butts within any political subdivision of the state of Texas that it butts. Those not in the state of Texas are good neighbors of Mexico, and the states of Nuevo Leon, Tamaulipas, and the city of Nuevo Laredo are in there somewhere. I think that would make for an interesting, I'm not quite sure what legally that would stand for, but symbolically it may be very interesting to add something like that. It's probably a silly recommendation, but it's a recommendation that I'd like just to ask.
It says, in cooperation with any state and civil authority, including the United States and foreign states.
I think the question, I mean, I might be mistaken, and I don't want to speak for you, but are you asking if naming the country would make a difference?
Yes,
Okay,
precisely.
yeah. Are you taking note there, legal?
Absolutely.
Just making sure.
I just want to remind the commission, because I know council's gonna have their items that they also wanna put through the voters, and I don't know how many, overall items, we're trying to keep them,
Limited at best.
I think at 20, so I would say that's everything, but that's just me saying, I know we've had 25, I think one time, and 28 items. So I don't know if,
We'll have to.
prioritize the most important, because I think there's gonna be several, recommendations coming out of the commission. So I wanna make sure that you all understand that council still has other recommendations that they're gonna wanna do. And so,
Perhaps we can target that, Madam Chair, if I may. Perhaps we can target this at the last meeting where we can essentially organize and itemize what we think is of greatest importance. And utilize our final meeting for that, because I suspect that in Article 2, we'll have a number of suggestions that we may want to actually enact.
Right.
Thank you.
no, I'm just saying, I mean, y'all can recommend everything, but I would say at the end, we're gonna put everything, tally everything together. Legal will put it together for us and tell us, these are the recommendations that you all have made on all these sections, and then y'all are welcome to present that as a whole, or let council pick which ones, and, or maybe eliminate some that may not be as important,
Ms.
as
Velez,
others.
I just wanna know, you didn't suggest anything, right?
No, I did not.
Exactly, you're just asking him a question, right?
Yes, I was just asking a question. However, if it was
If he comes back
confirmed in
and
the
tells you,
it
if
was
he comes-
confirmed
yeah.
in the affirmative, then there'd be an opportunity for suggestion.
right,
But as of now, we don't have one, just merely a question.
just question. I think it's a good.
I have just a comment. I think it's real sensible to think about, you know, limiting. I mean, we already have the long ballot in Texas. It's a lot for voters to process, you know, all those, but
It's November, so we're gonna have
yes.
general election.
Exactly. Then again, council doesn't have to take any of our recommendations. None of our recommendations have to appear on the ballot. So council's gonna trim what we do in any case, right? So I think we should just make every recommendation that we want to make in the expectation that council's gonna trim it anyway. So
Through public
we don't
issue.
need to,
We ask
you know,
more in the budget to get what we want.
let's just ask for everything and
Yeah.
then we don't expect to get
sticks.
everything.
There you go.
Yeah.
That'll work.
I like that.
All right, well, that finishes my comment.
I'm happy to help you. You let me know.
I'll second the help.
You want me to start at section 2.01?
So we're just gonna read it all again?
Well,
We
we
need to read it all. I was just
Because-
gonna say, what sections do you want to?
But
Yeah.
like going back in our minutes, I mean, we weren't gonna do anything until the city attorney's office, it literally says in our meeting in 2.01, they were gonna bring us back the information, so, you know, I don't think that we're really gonna move forward with, we're gonna go back to the same thing.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, what is it that you think we can do today?
Okay.
Cause it
Yeah.
literally says in our minutes that for 2.01 on, that the city attorney's office is gonna review the items, bring back options, and
We can start narrowing those issues that we are really
Yeah.
interested on.
We can
that
identify the
remember
issues that are
according
really
to our
interesting to
notes.
us.
Yeah, I mean, it
I
would be
think-
more of a collaborative
Can I
space.
ask you, was Zone gonna bring it today or like in the future? Like in the next meeting?
At the next meeting,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yours, yes.
It's not my pen.
I got my pen here.
Does that seem like a good way to proceed?
Yeah, it was, well, it will help us at least, even if
Yeah.
you start
You want
narrowing
additional
down the,
information, or you wanna express it, we'll have an opportunity for the next meeting.
to the issues. And we can go by memory or what you may consider important that you remember bringing up. Like in Article 1, I did note that there was an issue on discussing the forms of government. It was just me and you in the committee?
No, I think Andrew was part
I
of
was
it.
in the committee
You
also.
were in the committee? Oh, would you mind giving me your phone before you leave?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, okay, and we can come and discuss maybe the forms of local government, but I know legal was also going to look into that, right? Okay. So just so you know, we discussed that on section 1.02. Then we moved on to
I don't know if the claims section, the 180 days was questions, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, but they settled into the fact that the notice of claim was by law.
Yeah, that's in the Texas Torts
Yeah.
Claims Act. It just tells you how much time they have to give the city secretary's office, so that's,
See?
yeah, that's.
Noted right there. But somebody did ask why is this in this section, and that was not answered, just so you know.
The claims?
That's true,
Yeah,
like in that particular section.
yeah, in that particular.
No idea.
Who wrote this?
Pregúntenme, pregúntenme. All right, the next one that we kind of discussed was the composition.
Oh, yes.
Section 2.01A. Yes, the old question of redesigning the districts has already rearisen, so this is something that we're going to revisit. So this is, if all we're doing is identifying the issues,
Issues.
then this is definitely one.
Yeah. The next one was qualifications. We didn't settle on that either.
What was the question or concern there?
Time duration of living in the district was brought up. Residency versus homestead, should this be clarified? Were you or are you a registered to vote? Or somebody even brought up whether we should add other qualifications there. Is the word recited clear enough? Should we require public record? Is residence a state of mind? I don't know who said that.
The state is the one that governs most all of that.
Yeah.
And there's minimum requirements that you have to live in the state and the territory that you're running for. I think in the state, a year, and I think we also asked for 12 months, based on the state.
Yeah,
And then I think in the,
and someone also mentioned 180 days. In Carrasco and Mr. Killen, yeah.
I believe I was the one who recommended 180 days.
in the district that they're running in.
Yeah,
That was one of the recommendations.
That was
Because
one
I
of
think we can be, I think in the state, I don't remember if it says 6 months reside in the district you're running, but we can make it more specific, but not, I think that's why the charter has 90 days minimum.
Well, shall we, you want to attack this issue here? This is something that we could well, we're at quorum, so we can go at this as we please.
True. As long as we're clear about what we're doing. If we're just identifying issues, that's one thing, but if we want to talk substantively about any one of them.
Well, the qualifications here, we suggested 180 days for the candidacy. That was because we were concerned about folks moving to a district in order to run. Is that a record? Right.
Instead of 90.
Instead of 90, 180 days. There was also a similar issue when it came to, it was also a similar issue when it came to the employment status of a relative who may have someone running for office.
Board member also, right?
Yes, that was the other concern on timing.
Section, I think.
This was the very first one. We suggested 180 days, if I recall correctly, but I think I'd have to,
yeah, it's in my notes, 180 days.
I'm not bringing the right binder today. Well, shall we, Madam Chair, would you like to enshrine that in a motion, or?
Well, how do you feel? Because it is your motion, and
Well, if you're okay with it, I think we need to
Yeah.
continue on, and we can always revisit something.
that's right.
But I seem to recall this was something that we had that we all kind of generally agreed upon.
Sure.
So I'll make a motion that we, on section 2.01, composition qualifications terms, B, qualifications, that we increase that we suggest to city council that members should have resided within the district for which they file for candidacy for 180 days as opposed to the existing 90 days.
Could I make a suggestion? And this is something I've seen as the elections administrator. Instead of say reside, and I don't know, I would ask that legal look into this, I'm just thinking of it right now, is have them registered to vote at least 180 days before, and I don't know if that's legal or not, I wanna say it is, cause that's how we'll check.
Yeah.
To see if,
That's how residence is confirmed, through voter registration.
because before it was just, I live here unless you can show me a document that shows otherwise. And there is no other document that shows otherwise, is what the law says. So I'd rather, instead of say residence, be registered to vote at least 180 days or 90 or whatever you guys want to decide to change it to the residence, so it's not an issue of residence, an issue of registration. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just a suggestion.
Yes, because typically you can actually have two residences, so it's better to clarify what.
And I would say if it's legal, that you all consider be registered to vote in that district. Right?
Contingent on legal.
Yeah,
reside.
you're not legal to check to make sure that that's legal.
Yeah, that's a good point, because reside is ambiguous. You can declare a place to be your homestead and not actually live there.
It's
Or you-
happened before, that's why.
Yeah. So what do you think, Andrew,
You
about
can only
that?
register in one place.
So there's, and if we were to take that suggestion, we're actually making two separate motions here, because one motion is for the actual increase in the days. The second motion being in regards to the actual language. So what I'll do is I'm gonna keep my motion the way it stands, that we should increase the day from 90 to 180, and then make a second motion asking legal to research whether we should change from reside to some other language that's more definitive concerning residence. So at that point, I'll,
To remove, if I may, to remove the terms residence
Yeah.
in lieu of registered to vote.
right,
Right,
So
we're
we registered, a registered voter, at least 180 days.
Madam Chair, if I can move on that first motion for from 90 to 180?
I'll second.
Why don't we take care of that motion first?
Yeah.
So we can call for the question.
Any discussion?
Any nays? Oh, any discussion?
After, and then,
No.
no discussion.
No
So
discussion?
now you call for the vote.
Yeah? What is our vote?
All those in favor?
All those in
All
favor?
those in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, wait, there's something.
I think you should stay right there.
That's right.
You're doing fine. My apologies to the committee. Thank you, Christie, for a little call. I don't know if we addressed this. Henry Souvigny asked to
Yes.
be excused. Okay, good, thank you.
Even you were excused.
Excellent, what?
Temporary.
Shall we let the record reflect that Boyer O'Nellis has joined us in his
Yeah.
capacity as chair?
Thank you, Mr. Caranco. Could anyone tell me where we're at?
Section 2.01, Section B, qualifications. I was about to make a motion that we just changed from 90 to 180 days residence. Now the question was, shall we change the language from residence to be eligible to vote or have been registered to vote in that district for 180 days from residence?
And the reason is, Judge, that you get some context. There's always been issues with residents, right? People say, no, I live here. At the end of the day, as an elections administrator, I don't argue your residence. I argue when you register to vote. So the charter reads, shall reside within the district of which they file for candidacy 90 days. Right now, the commission made a motion to change it to 180 to make sure they're coming out of the district. But I suggested changing residence to register to vote as a registered voter, not your residency. And it'll show where you're registered to vote. You can only register in one place. And so you have to be 180 days before the last day to register.
Have we had any discussion regarding that?
That's where we are. We're
Any
discussing
agreement?
that.
And, thank you, Mr. Jack.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure people know that when you register to vote, you have to sign affidavits there, you're making certain assertions. There is legal ramification and criminal ramification. So I do kind of like that. That is actually a very unique situation versus, yeah, I sleep in that district. I hang my hat there, you know, that's.
In which case, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we ask legal to look into the language of your requisite to saying that one has been registered to vote for 180 days in that district as opposed to reside.
Just making sure that legally we can do that.
And pending a yes response, then you would like to
Pending a yes
make
response, I would like to include that.
And I'll second that.
Motion, we have a second, any discussion? No discussion, call for the vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none opposed. Thank you. Ms. Navarro, how are we doing this evening? Ready for our next item?
Oh, one thing that we're doing is, Instead of
Just
putting
go.
the burden on her to read everything, we're just gonna jump into the things we had focused or wanted to return to.
Why did I show up? Things are going smooth. Here I am going to my old evil ways. Okay, okay.
Professor Byam, if I may, Mr. Chair, we also did skip on composition of the council. We understand that that's going to be a larger conversation, that we may want to include some more members in that.
And also
That's a
to
big
say
deal.
that we are awaiting the comprehensive report back from legal on all the items that we requested more information on.
Okay. Excellent. Ms. Benavides, Mr. Carranco. Perfect.
All right.
Where do you all want to move on to?
Yeah,
I believe-
where shall we, Maria, where shall we go next?
Terms?
Yeah, terms and limits, what's the next one?
Okay.
You wanted, somebody brought up are term limits necessary? Someone said expertise versus corruption, a democratic choice. What about low turnout? So the question was, should we change the limit of terms, or should we leave it as it is?
I'd like to add an additional question to that,
Mm-hmm.
if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Carranco.
To be banned from running for life after an 8-year term seems an awful long time. And I'm not nearly going to advocate for someone sitting out a term or even 2. I would suggest 3 terms. But if someone is politically dead after 6 years and someone's really dead after 12, and if someone wants to get back in the game after 3 terms having passed, then they're either very politically inclined or they are just generally interested in coming back. This is merely a conversation piece. What is anyone's thought on allowing people to run again after 3 or 4 terms having sat out of council?
Well, term limits is always an interesting, a kind of double-sided
Right.
coin because, it seems democratic to prevent people from being in office forever, kind of share and get different perspectives. But also, if the people really want someone to serve, then term limits are a limitation on majority choice, which seems, from that perspective, undemocratic. So you can look at it both ways.
I think I would just like to offer that from what I've seen, I've only been around 3 decades, but elected officials often will hop onto other elected offices. So for me, their inability to continue to run is not an issue because they tend to find themselves in other positions either way. I do also want to bring into the conversation after this the fact that serving as a city council member doesn't limit someone from another elected position. I think that is of much more concern for this conversation, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was in my notes, that there was no language in the term limits having to do with if a person moves to another district.
Person what?
Moves to another district.
Oh,
Is the,
That was in my notes, somebody mentioned that.
I've heard of people
isn't
know
the,
that, challenging that, but I don't know, it's never been challenged.
Yeah, I can't recall that would. That's an interesting point.
on a literal interpretation of the second sentence, doesn't that take care of it? No person shall be elected as a city council member for more than 2 terms, full stop.
Well,
It didn't
and
say
that's what-
district, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, how is everyone feeling?
We also have another question on time served, and I believe Mr. Villa here brought it up concerning terms having been served and in regards to elections, such as the current situation with Councilman Rangel. I wish he was here because I'd like to hear his comments on that, but it was something to the term of if he took office 2 years into a term, which the state of Texas judicial system said was rightfully his, does this include 1 full term, or is there a length of time which needs to be considered, and that's going to be considered as a term? It's a rather touchy topic, which I'm unqualified to speak to, but it's something that I know that he would like to speak about, and I think that some of us may be interested in hearing.
Yeah, that ended up with sending legal to bring remedies, possible remedies by law. So do we move to the next one, or?
If we're gonna wait for a legal, opinion on that, yes, let's go ahead and go to the next one.
Okay, I am noting it, okay, as one of the issues that we are looking into. All right. The next one was compensation and expenses.
There was some discussion about this, I remember, you know,
Topic of conversation, I believe, Mr. Chair, was what justifies just compensation for services rendered. I believe we also talked about assigning the council, as it stands right now, gets to make their own salary adjustments, which could be both beneficial or unbeneficial to the taxpayer, depending how you want to look at that. I can't remember who suggested it, but I think someone suggested that perhaps we tie their salary, a city council member's salary with like a manager in the city, whereby, you know, whatever mid-level manager in the city would make, that's what they would get, and it just stay that way, as opposed to allowing them to make their own salary increase adjustments or cost of living. But that's, again, I'm going back to memory, and I wish I brought my right folder.
We're allowed to do that.
Aw.
Just to clarify, if I may.
They don't-
Yes, sir, Mr. Valdez.
When they make an ordinance to adjust the salary, it's not for the current council, it'll be for anybody coming in. So it just depends at what point they make it. And I think that, I'm trying to remember the ordinance, but it has to be so many months out before an election. If not, that current election
Does
doesn't
not
get
get
it
the
or something like
benefit, I
that.
remember that.
So they
that's
don't, they
right.
can't raise their own salary per se at that moment. It'll be for everybody coming in.
Do the people have to vote on
And then only
that?
half of them will get it until the next election for
Yeah.
the other half.
do the people, that doesn't require a charter amendment, the people don't have to vote on the salary increase, is that correct?
Ordinance.
No,
Yeah, okay,
It's not through ordinance.
no.
Okay. Well then,
I think-
it
I
does, does
think
it even
it's
make sense for us to make a recommendation about their pay if
These
that's
were
something
the-
they can
yeah,
do?
They were the main issues were minimum years for retirement. Mr. Henry brought up whether we are considering the right compensation in terms of inviting people to to apply. Is it competitive pay? And does the city allow other jobs as a city employee? Ordinance, this was also brought up as.
Council?
Yeah, this was also brought up as an issue when they declare they're working full-time. So those were the issues that were brought up under this section. And of course, we just left it.
Right, I think if I remember correctly, the lower the pay, the wealthier the candidate, because they can afford to
Yeah.
do that. So if it's not at a high enough level, it's not attractive to someone who needs a decent paying job to put money on the table for the family, something like that. I know that's a consistent criticism of the Texas state legislature, that it's low pay, it means that only wealthy
People of
persons
means
can afford to take that job.
Not like in the Republic, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So what is the current salary of a council person? Is it 50,
It's like 55,
55?
yes. I think 55, 58, all inclusive of, I think, home office and,
The other little perks of cell phone.
cell phone and
Car.
car allowance or something like that. I want to say it's total like 55,
And
Okay.
retirement.
besides the insurance.
Okay. And does it, I mean, if this is by ordinance, maybe this is beyond, I mean, maybe this really is not something we can even recommend.
Again, y'all can look at it, I mean, it's up to you if it's in the section in the charter. You can look at anything in the charter or add sections.
I mean, I suppose we could suggest that the salary be determined by charter. We could make that change. I don't think the city council would go for that.
Yeah, so I think that's gonna be a very tough sell too also.
Because then the people decide,
Yeah.
right?
I think we can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the next one was holding other offices. And we just passed it as in revisiting it. We talked about ethics committee, the lack of teeth, compensated or uncompensated committees, considering previous employee use your position as an employer. So this has to do with that question that having to do with, family members holding office for how long, what is considered appearance of misappropriation. This was a tough one. We were hoping legal would bring us opportunities to put teeth behind some of these.
I know if I may, Dr. Reyes, in the ethics, it's real hard. You could give a sentence. Okay, we're gonna sentence Boy Ornelas to mandatory educational classes and $500 fine. And the counter is, if I ignore it and I keep just running the red lights, how do you enforce that? Because the person go, yeah, I'm not a lobbyist. I still haven't registered. I'm not going to register. I'm going to keep doing what I do, in violation. So that was one of the dilemmas of the ethics.
All right, well, I'm gonna skip that one.
Okay, we're also waiting for some legal
Yes.
Yeah.
on that one.
Equal. And the next one was interference with administration. And remember, this is constructed so that the city council cannot hire or fire or manage outside of the hierarchy through the city manager. But we were thinking, what if it happens? There is no penalizing for that.
There's just an ethics violation because they say, yeah, I called landfill. This is Councilman Boy Ornelas. You open up that gate right now or you're losing your, yeah, that's
So we
wrong.
also send legal to find remedies on that, okay? FYI.
Excellent.
Ying, and now we're gonna be like, hey, we told you this. What's missing in this report?
Walter's taking notes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, the next one where we, was of course vacancies, forfeiture of office and filing of vacancies. And we kind of agree that that's gonna have to be in conjunction with the one Mr. Bella kind of pointed out about the terms of office and the number of years one serves. Because the biggest issue that was identified here was the situation with the second district right now that we experience.
And are we gonna wait for,
Yeah, for revisit this section, it was by Mr. Carrasco and Benavides and
I'll share one concern I have. If you start changing, because they're staggered and it's made, you could wind up theoretically all having a city council year vote where everyone's gonna change. If you're trying to fix something that's an anomaly that doesn't happen all the time, well, that's real hard. And I can tell you, there's still other stuff that can happen. You can still file a bill of review within 4 years ago. You know what? There was fraud, and I can still change it. So how are you gonna legislate or put something like that in the Constitution
no, this
or our
had to
charter?
do
I'm
with,
sorry.
this had to do with policing power. The city council doesn't have the power to police itself. Doesn't have the power to remove someone if they violate ethics or if they commit a crime. They don't have the power to replace anybody. So this is where we were talking about what are the best practices in other cities, right? If we need to remove somebody.
Okay.
And of course, that's gonna have to come from,
Legal too.
legal team. What are the possibilities of that?
Mr. Valdez, you have a
There's a
comment?
section that says judge of qualifications, city council shall be the judge of election and qualifications of its members and of all grounds for forfeiture of office. and then other powers to subpoena and all of that. No, I don't know how that plays into what Dr. Reyes was saying right now.
But I think it's just for those particular violations, and there's other violations that are not in here.
In here,
Well, and not only that, there is no process. We all talked about, the possibility of impeaching somebody, but there is no impeachment process here. They have no power, no process to make that happen.
So you're saying that these grounds for forfeiture of office are just mere words?
Yeah, because for example, let's say you discover somebody, and I'm just bringing this as an example because it just
Sure,
happened.
sure.
But somebody discovers that, they were elected by violating the law. So what? I can still fight for my place because there is no process for them to address it.
But there is, and Mr. Valdez, would you share how right before
No,
you?
there isn't
what-
because it was left to a court. It wasn't left to our city.
Because that's.
at the end of the day, the court is the one that's gonna decide
Yeah.
almost everything.
But other cities have impeachment processes, just so you know.
If you can give
And so-
legal, name of the city, that way they can investigate
I'll give you
it.
some names, but yeah.
But I don't think it has to do with elections, and that's. I
No.
think-
those are
Elections
cities.
fall under the state.
So maybe we need
Yeah.
to just clarify.
And it
Or
could be
policing
federal
itself.
too, so.
And then, yeah.
Well, I have a question on, section 2.05, because it says that a member who's been charged with conduct that constitutes ground for forfeiture is entitled to a public hearing. That hearing needs to be published in a newspaper 1 week in advance. The hearing happens. Decisions made by city council under this section are subject to judicial review. So, again, back to what are those decisions? And what have those decisions been in the past that didn't have any standing because ultimately,
No, but and they
The
have a
famous
procedural
courts.
book, right? But that procedural book doesn't cover process of impeachment. It does, how are you as a city council going to do this? Who is going to initiate it? Who? I think even legal, Mr. Song said, yeah, we don't have that.
But we've done it before. We've had a public hearing, and they've done it before, and they voted against the impeachment. It's happened before. Actually, I think they just got outside counsel who was the one.
Who ran the
Yeah,
investigation?
They were the one that did it.
That's why I was.
But it's just on these particular
What do you
grounds.
mean by outside?
Like they hired so that there's no conflict because it's obviously a council member, there'd be a conflict with somebody internal, so they would hire somebody independently.
Well, this can serve as an example of the process that can be established, right?
Maria, are you suggesting you want council to have the power to remove council persons?
And they do, for the
Yeah,
charter,
just like in the Senate or in the House, they have the
certain-
process to, yeah,
but just for these particular violations.
right. I said, my suggestion, no, they should put me in charge and I'll remove them. Just kidding, I don't want that. But just so you know, I'm reading the notes of the comments that everybody made on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, on C, filing of vacancies, the motion was done by Mr. Carranzo and Mr. Henry. So, let's look at other cities and where temporary appointees possibilities or, yeah.
I guess, Mr. Chair, well, I guess
Yes,
it's
sir, Mr. Valdez.
the case where District 7 at one point, their council member was removed, so they couldn't have an election for 120 days, and so
Yeah.
I think that's where the consideration for an appointment, temporary appointment, came about, because that's not in the charter. And so I think in certain situations it might occur. I mean, normally doesn't, but it may.
I could see that where there's a criminal one and it's already a high crime or higher misdemeanor, right? Moral turpitude, something. Once there is a conviction on that side criminal, then it comes easier on this side to go, you've already been convicted, you've had your chance, or you bite of the apple then.
But the reason why somebody can sue, and legal, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand the legal system, right, is if the city doesn't have a process by which it's going to address a grievance, then it is more likely that I have a chance to sue. Because if you establish as a city a process of grievance addressing, right? I have to follow that before I can sue.
You have to burn out your administrative remedies if there are one. And it actually works out the opposite. Actually, legally, it's easier when there isn't. Because I just go to court and file it. If I do it any other way, they go, okay, hold on, boy, you have not exhausted all your administrative remedies, and they actually stop it, throw it back here, and force
throw
you
it
to
back.
finish off this.
And so if we set up as a city a process, right? Because how much money do we spend on lawsuits?
Did Mr. Walter really well? Well enough. It's just- I was gonna suggest maybe if you wanna put in the charter that, you create that process through an ordinance, that way it's not specific in the charter, but now you have an opportunity to create an ordinance too.
It's the building tools to fix
Yeah,
the
you're giving
problem.
them the tools to say, hey, through an ordinance, you can create this.
Yeah,
You wanna
well-
consider that, or be very specific and.
Let's hope legal is doing their homework and they come at us with very good and enthusiastic solutions.
There you go.
You need help researching and stuff? Right?
No, we're good.
You can call me.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
We will, if we need.
This is fascinating stuff for me, so. All right, the next one that we highlighted has a possibility for discussion was, judge of qualifications, so 2.05. Somebody noted that this section has no teeth. How does the council hold each other accountable? What happens when a member is not charged? Shall a mandatory and, or maybe not mandatory removal take place? So it's in connection to the last one. They're all under the same one. Even the investigation, we also highlighted. Any questions on that?
No, ma'am.
I would just say that I believe the city of San Antonio does have some recent examples of where they've had to remove members of council, so I would make the suggestion for legal to look into the procedures of the city of San Antonio for what that process entails.
And they have the city councilman with DWI, and he ran from police to his house, so that's also.
We shouldn't have had that, that's sad.
It is, it's life. How about the next item?
All right, just so you know, that one kind of bleeds through to investigation and also bleeds through into procedure. It's like we identify all those things to be interlinked. So the next one was quorum. That is section C of 2.07. This is going to link to the type of government we select, and we question this idea of 4 plus the mayor not being quorum if the mayor doesn't have the power to vote. And so that also links it to the mayor power to vote. And we also put it to revisit. Any questions on that?
I guess I know that we were really diving into this idea of whether the mayor gets a vote or not, and
Yeah.
whether we should formally say that the mayor gets a vote.
We
But
did.
technically, that language is already there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a preference by whoever the mayor is at the moment, whether they want to use their vote even in the event where it's not just a veto, right? So do we need to say formally that the mayor needs to vote?
Well,
I think
just
they-
clarification, I think the mayor can only vote unless there's ties, is that correct?
No, that's.
Or they can vote at any time they want.
There's a contradiction right now that legal is interpreting differently, saying that they only vote in case of a tie.
That language
But
is
the
in on
language
here.
was changed, what, 2 years, how many years ago?
I
Literally,
believe
it
so.
went to the
There's two different
people to
sections
give
and
them
they
a
kind of
vote.
contradict each other, and so I think for
Yeah,
clarifications,
for
We can
clarification.
wait for legal.
wanted that the mayor to vote, and so that if he, I mean, everybody votes, and
It's,
that's, I
what
think, where you
section
guys were.
contradicts?
It
It's,
was the mayor only votes in case of a tie, and then the other one was, let me see if I can remember. There's another section,
It's, section 215, powers and duties of the mayor.
okay, give me 1 sec, sorry about that.
I know
But-
you've
and
had
al-
strong.
And also when it
I'm sorry.
states,
Ms.
if I'm
Reyes, go
not
ahead.
mistaken, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no?
If I'm not mistaken, but it also where it says that city council votes to pass, laws, I think it stipulates the city council members' votes.
Yeah, because there is a time,
Yeah.
and they were able to. If I mean, you're gonna find personalities of the mayors. There's been past ones that says, you know what, before, I'm gonna let everyone know I am for this. And they put it out there. If there's a tie, I'm gonna vote, and they're absolutely within their right. They can say it, okay, I'm just doing freedom of speech here, where I land on this subject. I believe Mr. Vela was giving the example he didn't like when they didn't have to, or they would tell other people to force up that issue, but in the past, it's actually worked that way. Yes, sir, Mr. Caranco.
Mr. Chair, I believe that Professor Byam had made a motion and we agreed upon that the mayor should be offered a vote and should be voting in every bit. And perhaps to streamline this issue here, if there's a contradiction, we either
Right.
correct the contradiction here or we proceed with the correction that Professor Byam and the committee has already agreed upon, which is to offer the mayor a vote, notwithstanding council's approbation and the voter approval of that.
See, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir, Mr. Valdez.
section 2.07, where it says voting, the very last sentence, no action of the council shall be valid or binding unless adopted by affirmative vote of at least 5 council members or 4 council members and the mayor. So that shows that the mayor votes. But then you go under the mayor and it says, shall only vote in case of a tie of council members.
Well, I think the number 4 there is envisioning the tie.
Yeah.
The what, I'm sorry?
The number 4 there is
It was,
envisioning the.
and then
The
it,
problem is that legal says he doesn't vote only in the case of a tie. And so I'm of the affirmative where he gets to vote, but the other one's saying no, and so that's what we had asked for clarification of in the charter.
I see.
Make it very specific that, remove that section of only can vote in case of a tie, and then the other one would supersede everything, right? Where he votes,
Yeah,
I would think.
yeah. So when we get to it, removing
I would say remove
removing
that
that,
section.
2.153.
And
That
I
was
guess,
in the notes. Remove the procedural distinction.
I think that's where we can
What are we
clarify it
doing?
better.
What are we doing?
We're right on track. That's what we're discovering. We're right on track.
So I think that's where the confusion comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So then this one is probably already
Where we at?
Drawing right.
resolved.
In the voting. No, pero, okay.
Okay, the next one was section 2.08. The motion was to add a directive. This motion was by Carranco and Henry. And ordinance cannot be on the same day. Add fees was the motion. Motion to include states that any fees took place by ordinance. Killam and Henry. Wow, I don't even understand that, I'm sorry, but
what was the motion?
it was a motion.
What was the motion again?
Let's see
To
the
include,
minutes.
Include language to,
to include that any fees, or to place in an ordinance, having to do with fees to place it in an ordinance. Do you have notes on that?
I think it only states fines and penalties, and they wanted to add fees to that.
Fees, yeah. One says add fees, and ordinances cannot be on the same day. I don't know what that means. I forgot to put clues for myself.
That part I don't have, yes.
Okay,
The same day. It's in the minutes.
let me read the,
But Joe, if it was a motion, wouldn't it have been in the minutes? Shouldn't it have been in the minutes?
yeah, it should be in there.
It should be.
Well, we caught it on camera, whatever it was,
Yeah.
and we have to go back and watch the video.
Okay, so I think it's linked to section B procedure in 2.9 actually. It reads, except as provided in section 2.11, no ordinance shall be submitted for a vote of the council at the same meeting at which it was introduced. Except as provided in section 8.03, it shall not be necessary that an ordinance be read more than one time before submission for a vote of the council. So I think we were talking about if that ordinance involves fees, it shouldn't be allowed to be voted on after one reading.
Or the first one.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because 8 is. Utilities. So, yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
All right, then we moved, they dismissed that one, space between ordinance. Changes in language are going to be recommended for 2.11. This is the emergency ordinances. Just formatting space and stuff like that. Okay, that's not that important.
I'd like to make
The
a,
next one was
I'd like to
the,
make a note on that,
Yeah.
actually, 2.01, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carranco.
If we adopt the protocol with the mayor being able to vote, we need to make a note on 2.11, but the affirmative vote of 5 council members, that should be, that would have to be changed to 5 members of council or 5 voting members of council. You city council members, I assume that there may be a, we just want to make sure the language there is appropriate for the mayor to be included in that.
We can make it similar to the last expression for 4 council members and the mayor.
And or mayor.
all right, the next one that you guys highlighted was 2.14, mayor election and term.
What was the controversy there?
That was your motion, Professor?
No, it says Carrasco and Benavides and Sauvignon.
Oh.
And Henry. So, one says for 120 days, city council ANC, so it's probably connected to the,
Oh, I'm thinking 2.15.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
2.14.
it's, yeah, 2.14. And we have here to revisit.
That was because we,
Yeah.
that was because we weren't making any action until 2.15, where we started actually making votes on that.
I think for 2.15, the only thing that I would bring into question, and we probably moved legal to get more information on this, is section 4 about the veto power and whether the veto power can be overridden by only a simple majority of 5
Yeah,
council members, or if it should be a super majority.
exactly.
That was the topic conversation as
Yeah.
one of 2. The first one was 3, where we said shall only vote in case of tie, which would be, our recommendation was to strike that from the, from section 2.15. And then we discussed super majorities, which seems to be the course of action in a lot of the charter this time around, making sure super majorities are respected in that regard as opposed to simple majorities.
I wonder if we can just vote on that one today.
Which,
The supermajority. Supermajority for veto and supermajority for,
We should vote on it. I don't think we should wait. We don't need to wait.
no?
What were they gonna get us on that?
You want to make a motion?
yeah, I mean, I think it's an easy one. So I want to make a motion to override the veto instead of 5 council members, to change it to a supermajority. Which it will also depend on what we decide to do with the structure of government.
Well, assuming we maintain the current structure of government,
Yeah.
would you consider amending your motion to include the number 6 as supermajority as opposed to
Yeah, as
5?
opposed to 5.
So that's the motion?
That's the motion.
That's Dr. Reyes's motion to make it 6 as a supermajority. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Benavides. Any other discussion? No discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And opposed. Ayes have it.
One less, yay. All right.
That's one extra we're gonna present to
Yeah.
city council. Let's see what they say on.
The next
They're
one,
gonna adopt
the
it.
next one is section 5 from that same section 2.15. There was a discussion about the official state of the city address. We put a motion to revisit because Mr. Killam wanted to talk about privatizing that hybrid, allowing private citizens to invest on that. And so, just FYI, is there for discussion later.
Mr. Chair? if I
Yes,
may.
sir. Mr. Carranco, go ahead.
I believe the intent of that was to mimic the mayors in the valley, such as Farr and McAllen and Brownsville, where they turned the state of the city from something that's merely reading a statement into record into something a little more, I'm not going to say the word festive, but a little more engaged with the private community by asking for sponsorships and essentially having a little more dialogue with the private sector and the city. And after all, it's something that. Anyways, point is that that's what he was trying to say. Essentially, imitate that, and we may need to speak to our friends in the valley as to how that is structured, because I'm unaware of that, but I understand he has significant play in that.
Let's have a little bit of discussion on this. Has anyone attended it or has ever gone? I did with Mr. Sines when he was mayor, and the thing, it's at the LEA. I'm gonna give you the plus. You had city resources, so they don't have to go out. They had their tables. It was nice. He talked about the future. It speaks about what they want to focus on for the year that comes. Now, I'm going to give you the pros and cons. Pros, when it's in-house, you don't have to beg for money. What do I mean by beg for money? As a politician, when you ask for something, and Dr. Reyes, you've been good to me. You gave me $500,000 for my event. We had, who do we have?
Here's my bill, make sure it's passed.
There you go. You think I'm gonna ignore your phone call? What are we building, Dr. Reyes? That's the inferred thing, and it is hard. Look at what we do with our trip to Washington. We have a hybrid system for that.
Yes, we
Mr.
do.
Carranco, you've gone to that, haven't you?
A number of times, yes.
There you go. But, and there you could see something like that happening. How do you all feel about it? Do you all feel one way or another? Ms. Benavides, you've run for office. You know what it's like to ask for stuff. I've run for office. I know exactly what it's like. It is difficult, you know, and
I think the concern here was that the language was restrictive in saying that it's completely prohibited. I would be cautious to move away from having this be an event that is funded by city funds and only be sponsored privately and only be budgeted out of private funds. I think that if we wanted to explore this opportunity, I would also be cautious to make sure that there are some guardrails and limitations put in place, such as what is the maximum amount of contribution in kind or dollar amount that can be sponsored by a private business.
well said. State of the Union, it's really the mayor's show, is it not? I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Carranco, then I'll share
Please,
my.
after you.
A state of the city is the mayor's interpretation of what's coming up here. I could say, I'm mayor and I'm all about golf. This is going to be a golf city. City council could go, you're out of this world. We're transportation. We're going to be focusing on that. So it doesn't really bind us to anything. It's supposed to be positive. We can share with the community what's the state. How's the bridges doing? How's our airport doing? How's, the health of our city? This is what we're going to invest. So I see it's a good opportunity to give feedback to the citizens so they know the health of the city and what the mayor is showing where he wants to focus on. The mayor sets an agenda, so it can have an influence. Mr. Carranco?
For the record, I'm an atrocious golf player, so I don't want
Me
to
too.
see, so.
I agree. I'm with you.
But Professor Byam's a great golf player, I understand.
Can drive a good golf cart.
All that said, to Ms. Benavides' point, why don't we offer language such that instead of the private sponsorship, the official state of the city address is prohibit, the state of the city address may be sponsored by private citizens or private sector, insofar as the city matches the funding from the private sector. That would encourage the city to put up something there, but also in return get something from the private sector. So it's a little bit of a play there, and we all get what we want.
Okay, that's interesting. So, who goes first? Does the city go first, and then it would be the other way, right? You would expect the community to make, because what if I'm not a popular mayor and I cannot get any contributions? So the city doesn't match, and I'm not going to tell you all what the state of interns. So
I don't know. I'm asking this.
I'm just playing devil's
Yeah,
advocate with you,
No, I understand.
Mr. Carranco. And the answer could be, you're mayor. You could just have a press conference and just tell, or I could put on my website, this is what I think the vision for this year is. It doesn't have to be a big event. I don't know how you all feel about that. How important is it?
My opinion is that we should err on the side of caution and just leave the language the way it is. That's my opinion.
I will bring up another point that is loosely related to this.
Yes, Ms. Benavides.
Just comparing, this is a much larger event, right, that is supposed to help bring the community at large together. We've also had a lot of conversation about city council members representing their districts only versus interests that are citywide or at large, correct? So we also have a concern with discretionary funds. And what we've seen from events that city council members hold in their districts is that they do get some of these other sponsorships from private entities. So do we want that to be replicated on a mass scale? And that's just a question that I'm posing for
Oh
everybody.
my God, I think this is great. That's a great question. I thought you were going to be reading my mind, because I kept thinking the Washington celebration and the challenge that another kind of celebration could bring to that, and I was excited, but anyway. But I think this is a great question when it comes to equal treatment under the law, so. Yeah.
I'm going to say that why don't we revisit this and meditate on the potential merits and demerits of the situation. I look at it from the Washington perspective, and I'm very happy to go to Washington every year and help support the city in their mission up there. I know what power those sort of events have in attracting people and giving a platform on there. I understand there's downsides to it, but in Washington, it works really, really well. For that reason, we receive a lot more funding than a lot of other communities of our size, because we go out there and interns fight to get into the event. And when the interns go in there and they say, here that Laredo is the largest port in the nation, and that we have this beautiful and vibrant culture that's dominated by a minority, their minds are blown. That being said, this is more of an internal issue for our community that I think we need to reflect upon and sit upon. So to that extent, I might ask that maybe we can revisit this in a subsequent meeting.
Agree.
I agree.
Well, we could consider, just for the sake of example,
Sure.
The great party in Washington, D.C. that is the National State of the Union, right? And the president walks into the House, and you've got the Supreme Court, and you've got the legislators, right? How would everybody feel if that event were sponsored by private interests, Bill Gates and Elon Musk sort of throwing the party, right? Doesn't that just encourage like this cozy relationship between government and private enterprise that people are already suspicious about? I don't know. It's just a speech, right? It's not a party. It's not lobbying. It's not in Washington DC, it's just
Technically,
local.
it's to the citizens of Laredo, let them know state
they
of the
elected.
city is, how we're doing and where we're going.
Who they elected,
Yeah.
right?
That's a fair point.
But who doesn't like a good party, so.
It's because that's the issue here, right? If it's like, and I'm speaking from grassroots up, you know, people get swayed by a good carne asada to sign their land away just so somebody can extract oil, you know, and destroy it. So we also have to realize the power the party has to sway people into other things, like accepting, you know, a role that they have to play in society. So no, I agree with Byham and with Benavides. So, but I like the idea of exploring this on the district side.
I'm sorry, exploring
State of the district.
okay.
Yeah, this idea that the district council members do have the freedom to have sponsorship for each of the district's things, right?
Well, that also makes sense too, because it's a more localized area, whereas the mayor is supposed to represent everybody.
Yeah. Byham, don't back out, man. Don't back out. No, I just want to explore that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should revisit this later, that's fine.
Yeah, the motion was to revisit. I think we were going to speak of the examples that you guys were going. Yeah. All right. The next one was the city secretary, section 2.16. We were exploring whether this position should be elected. We also sent it to legal to see what they find is practice around Texas. We also explore this idea of conflict of interest because they do report to,
City manager.
yeah.
I remember it being of interest to me, at least, to know your opinion on this question, because you are, or were, I see ex-city secretary there. What's going on there?
Right there.
Ex-city-
Well, ex-city
I wanna
secretary. Before we
introduce-
go any further, does everybody know who Mr. Maldonado is?
Yes,
Yes, the new
Yeah,
city
he
secretary.
introduced himself.
Mr. Maldonado has a career, he's been at Bridge, Airport, his beautiful wife is our tax assessor for the city. They've been true servants here at the city of Laredo for a number of years, and now he's in that position. Do you feel one way or the other, Mr. Maldonado? Yeah, it's your first day, welcome
I
to
think
the.
he wants the election. No, I'm just kidding. But just a little context, I mean, before it was an elected position a long
was.
time ago.
Mm.
And then I wanna say in the early or mid
It was Gustavo
80s.
Guevara.
80s.
Yeah, it was mid-80s around there
when it
where
changed,
they
it was
changed.
an appointment, and then Mr. Guevara was here for a long time. It's changed in the charter. Before it was council just dealt with the city secretary, then in the current version, it's hired and fired by the city council. And, but reports to the city manager, and my question to legal has, I think, even when Ms. Hale was our legal representation, our city attorney was, when it says report to, do I report what I'm doing, or do I don't take action? Because in the section, it says the only ones that can give action or direction to the city secretary is the city council and or state laws, state statutes, right?
And I used that example where I said, I'm the bad city manager. I direct you, Mr. Maldonado, you will not let,
And that's
Jack
happened.
by him run for office. I don't care when he turns it in, you rip it, you do not accept, is he reporting to me and doing mine, or does he go, I have my obligations?
And everybody's different in every position, right? And I hate to say that, but that's the reality of it. And so, I know in some cities, they report to the hired and fired by the city manager. Some of them, they report and just deal with city council, and this is kind of a hybrid. Since I'm not there anymore, I don't mind them reporting to the city manager and removing them completely from the charter. I know, city manager, we talked about that. There's some positions that currently we feel that maybe shouldn't be there, in the charter, but that's, again, a recommendation from you all.
I'll give you the plus to something like that. Then whenever the city secretary misbehaves, doesn't keep open records, doesn't whatever, you blame the city manager. You go, no, that was your dog that did me. Sir, it's yours, and it's the direct, that goes on you. That means you don't know how to hire people.
And so there's advantages and disadvantages. It's really up to what you all want to recommend to council, what council wants to do.
Let me flip it now on the other side. That's a very powerful position. All my friends from Mexico, they're going to know this gentleman's name because everything from the city of Laredo has Mr. Maldonado's name, not the other guy's name. And they really see it like, look, that's his seal. He is the authority.
Mexico is like that. It's
Yes.
a little bit different. It's not the same position, right? It's called secretario, but it's
the
a higher
same.
up position, yeah.
Attorneys are no big deal. Notaries are big in Mexico. That's from the president. You're 18-year-old U.S. citizen, no felony. You got it. $75. You're in.
Yeah. No, but over there, it's very important.
That is, you're a big deal if you're a notary. Yeah.
So really, I mean, again, it's really what recommendation you all want to give to the council from management's point of view. Reporting or removing from the charter and just doing it through an ordinance. The position still has to be there. That's also available. for you all
Dr.
to consider.
Reyes, can I ask you, you have some concerns if there's a lot of centralized power into the city manager, right?
Yeah,
And that's one of the ways you have a little check and balance, because you're always mentioning a check and balance where you go, well, I also report to city council and they're also a protective shield. It's like a two-step to launch something. You need both.
We have to abide by state law for the most part.
Also, that's true.
The elections, we run them through the county, we hire the county. So the position is the elections administrator locally, but it's mostly to receive documentation from council.
But here's it doesn't have to be like that. We do that because it saves us money. We piggyback onto them. They're already running it, and then we're just.
Well, they already have all the
versus
fees and judges.
we could do it ourselves.
And we've done it, well, we haven't recently since,
in the past one. It was
long
when
time
I
ago.
first yes, because we were running it at a different time. We were in May, remember? After
Well-
the primaries,
well, even then, I mean, since I've been here and that I remember, we've never run it. But before Mr. Guevara was appointed, city would run their own elections, back in the 70s, maybe.
Yep.
But again, you're running for the position and you're the one in charge of the election. That's kind of a hard thing. And I think that's why they went away from that and said, let's just hire the county. And so we deal with the county for the elections. And they have other people, they have other
cheaper,
people.
yes.
It's a lot of work. It's a small department, and that's the reason we have it a small department. That you're gonna have to hire a lot of people if you wanna run your own elections. Can we? I guess at the end of the day, we could, but but we don't want to.
Feasible.
You buy all the equipment, they're talking millions of dollars just for the equipment. And that's why we contract with the county. And so it's good for the city secretary and Mr. Maldonado will find out there are trainings. No, I mean, there's trainings for, even though we don't run it, we need to know cutoff dates and all the stuff, dealing with it, because you never know.
Absolutely. Or there could be a conflict that you all feel, hey, they're not honoring it over there. We're not in
We're
agreement.
gonna figure it
This
out,
way,
we'll
yeah.
rent machines, we'll do whatever we have to, we'll run it. I mean, that's throughout the years that I've been here, it has been discussed, even though we try to avoid that because it's another animal, right, to do that. But I mean, it's really up to y'all's recommendation. Again, we have to abide by state law, the position. But really, to be controlled by someone, I mean, you still gotta follow state law, whatever that is,
Right.
and based on the situation. So, I don't see it.
This is what I would challenge. And Mr. Maldonado do a great job. We're gonna use Boyer as city secretary. I really am horrible about open records requests. I'm in so much trouble with the attorney general. I can't make the deadlines and we're not fighting any of the exceptions. They're gonna get mad after a while. They could be lost in the process. Well, who's the guy that's dropping the ball? Well, it's Boyer. He's the one that
At the end of the day, that's why legal does the open records.
It's assigned to legal now.
It's not a duty right now.
But keeping the records, like even this, we're not gonna file the videos, just put in your stuff. And then figure out, and everyone knows,
Miscellaneous.
that's why Dr. Reyes, I do it a lot to you, I go, Dr. Reyes, or whatever, Cause you have to rebuild this, so if we talk, you could get lost, so sometimes she'll see me do, I don't mean to snap you all out, just so I put it to record. She mentioned it was the Ms. Benavides or Mr. Carranco, said that's why I hope it didn't take offense, and that's why I try not to point, I use more one finger, but that's a little explanation.
Well, we set it up on revisiting that one and the city attorney, just so you know, they were the same issues.
Based on our discussion, it doesn't sound like we can see a way in which the pros and the cons are anything other than just about equally balanced.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's the way we're seeing it, maybe no action is necessary.
I do think there is
That you
one.
were gonna have to
And the other-
tighten it
the other
up.
But I
and-
don't agree with that.
Remove.
So,
Checks and balance.
there was one question, though, I seem to recall, and that was the affirmative vote of no less than 5 council members to remove that.
Yeah,
We talked
I
about
remember that.
independence of those places, and if a simple majority is really sufficient to preserve that sort of autonomy, we may want to consider increasing that to 6.
I was gonna say, and I think that was part of the discussion initially, and that I brought up was, if it stays and they report solely to council, then I would suggest that to be efficient to council and not be worried about a simple majority trying to get removed people, because new people come in, it's not, instead of having someone that has experience, it's like, no, I wanna put, a friend of mine or someone I know, I don't like him, or whatever their reasons, right? And so instead of having a simple majority, I would ask that y'all, and I think that's what you guys were gonna consider, the commission was gonna consider, maybe upping that to a supermajority or something, I don't know. That's just a suggestion, if it's gonna stay here.
You feel one way or the other, Mr. Carranco, or anybody?
I
Am I right?
Because right now it is kind of a supermajority, if you look at the language, it says 5 council
less than
members. It doesn't even include the mayor, he would be number 6 on the vote. So it's not a majority of city councils, 5
Five
council
has to
members.
be there, if they've had quorum and,
I know some council members are looking at changing that, making sure that everything says city council instead of just 5 council members, for whatever reason. And there's certain positions that they're worded differently.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that was intentional or it was just, somebody missed that one, but that's how these are. And so I would say maybe suggest a supermajority if you're gonna keep it, to remove. That would give a, not, and I don't wanna say freedom, but it would be the confidence to be able to really
now,
tell
we
you.
don't, if we're gonna commit
That-
one way, I think we should be uniform, and there's a lot to be said, if
Is
that's
that-
something we feel strongly about, okay? Not just a regular majority, let's keep super.
No, but I would agree that a supermajority kind of sets in place a little safeguard for.
Yes,
challenging
because I'd hate to be
Oh,
in
it
the
does,
unemployment line
absolutely.
saying, I stood my ground, yeah, but 5 got rid of me,
yeah.
you know?
Agree.
Cause that could happen.
Should we change it then?
So, yeah, so if we cannot agree to making it elected, I would compromise. It's a great compromise.
Then I'll make that motion.
Yeah.
I'd like,
Yes, sir.
uh,
Mr. Carranco,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the language for city secretary may be removed by the affirmative vote of no less than 5 council members, be changed to reflect a vote of no less than 6 council members.
Seconded.
council members, not 5.
Yeah, because we're gonna change mayor to council member, right? That was one of the solutions we saw for the voting. Yeah.
I'd like to make a point of.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carranco, you had a motion.
Before, I'd like to rescind that motion, and I'd like to make an observation or request of the city attorney, sorry for the work. Considering that this is a outstanding matter that's gonna be affecting a lot of the charter, I'd like to see if we may direct the city attorney's office to research what language needs to be included in the charter to reflect a city council that would be inclusive of the mayor, and what changes may be required of this charter overall to reflect a uniform language. If that's, if,
For the removal of any positions in the charter?
no,
Or just in general?
this is in general. If we're talking about council members, council, people, animals, dog catcher, whatever it is, make sure that it's a uniform language.
Because the ambiguity is whether or not it includes the mayor.
Well, no, if I could, in the beginning, it tells you what a council member is. And
That's true.
what the city council is, it
Yeah.
defines. When it mentions city council, that includes the mayor, it literally says
Okay,
that.
there it is.
And then
There's
when
the
it says
clarity.
city council member, it's excluding the mayor.
Okay, there's the
And
clarity
so
we need.
that's clear, it's just how do
It
you
just
wanna
becomes the
vote?
number, are you talking 5, the supermajority or six?
Then let me narrow my motion. I would like to change on I'd like to make the recommendation that section 2.16 city secretary, that the last statement there, a vote of no less than 5, be changed to a vote of no less than 6.
Council members, give the council member report,
I'm going to,
or of the city council.
If you say of the city council, then the mayor.
Includes
That includes the
and
mayor.
6.
If you say city, council, well, that means only. So, council
my
members.
motion was from 5 to 6.
Yes.
We'll leave it like that, and then I'm gonna make another motion here in a second.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
well, then we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Jack Bang. We have any, fine. I'm so sorry.
I don't even.
And the more you all look at me, the more I am going to butcher that name. Look at me with love. Could you all do that, please? Okay, Mr. Byam, thank you. Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? No discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed. The ayes have it. You have a second motion, Mr. Carranco.
It's not a motion, it's a directive, because I am confused.
Yeah.
And therefore, I need clarification that only an attorney can fix. Let's,
That's the last thing you want to do if you want clarity. I'm joking.
What is the clarification, Mr. Clerk?
I would like to clarify the
Council
difference between council members and city council overall throughout the document. This needs to be cleaned up.
My understanding is city council is the council members plus the mayor. Councilman is just the,
Let's clean this up a little bit, because I think that if we are going to move and make a motion to the city council,
That
and
includes the mayor.
that we are going to include the mayor as a voting member,
Yeah.
then that needs to be reflected in this document overall, whether
oh,
it's
you
the-
want a definition front?
whether
to-
the change
to-
is at the front, in language throughout, but we need to clarify that language, because if it's not clarified, we're gonna get that ambiguity, and everyone's gonna look back on
Yeah.
the Charter Commission of 2024 for screwing things up.
Why don't we motion to include a sentence that clarifies just this issue in section 1.02? Or back in section 1, where terms are defined? So whenever,
City attorney or assistant city attorney, your thoughts on this? I'd like to hear those.
I'd certainly say, agree with that. That's where it will be placed.
Yeah.
We would have to change the definitions around, which I think we've already done, to clarify that.
Do we need to make a motion, or do we need to ask for anything of your office in this language?
Well, I think it's up to you, but, what we're trying to do is, when you say, you wanted to give the mayor a vote, we would change it to kind of match that, So
Can I
there
make
wouldn't be a difference.
suggestion, if I may?
Once they're done with their discussion, yes.
That is
I'll recognize Mr. Valdez.
Thank you.
Mr. Valdez.
So, my understanding of what you're trying to do is wherever it says city council member, to change it to city council. Would that be fair to say?
I think
That would include the mayor.
that would probably be sufficient, yes.
And members of the council, that's everywhere too, and that's also,
Anywhere it says council, members of the council,
Right.
council.
that's, yeah, to reflect.
So wherever it says
council.
city council members, that excludes the mayor, you want that changed to
City
city
council.
council. I think that's what you're trying to do.
That'd be fun to write on the ballot, but yes.
There's actually, you can put a provision that says that everything, that is not, that contradicts, that will be, you know.
There's a little
made.
section or a little
Yes,
note in
there's
one of the
like a
sections.
catch-all, yeah,
We can
for
do
everything.
that.
So you
If
don't
that's
have
the
to-
intent of the commission, we can do that.
we could say it always means this unless otherwise
Exactly.
specified.
Because it does say, I know, I can't find it right now, but it does define what is each one, right?
Yeah.
But we can add another little definition saying everything means voting, the mayor has the right to vote or whatever.
Yeah.
That'll clarify it, I think.
Excellent.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion on that, or is that just automatically assumed?
Maybe legal's already doing that.
Well, if you make a motion, I think it'd be more formal.
Yeah.
And that way we can put that section where it needs to go.
Under
That makes
definitions
sense.
at the beginning.
Okay,
Mr. Carranco?
Now, how the hell am I gonna word this motion?
The motion to add a clarifying sentence at the beginning. That-
In
You do it
section,
faster.
motion to add a clarifying, sentence in section 1.02, form of government,
And laws.
and then, have legal bring it back to us to clarify the following, and then whatever we talked about right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I motion that we insert that
What I
clarifying
said?
sentence. Yes.
Seconded,
Second,
there you go.
Capon, second by Andrew Caranco, no discussion, call for the vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Oh, we're fixing.
Yes, sir,
it.
Mr. Caranco.
I'd like to continue the same discussion on section 2.17, internal auditor, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
The auditor may be replaced and terminated by an affirmative vote of no less than 5 council members. We, in keeping with the spirit of supermajorities and streamlining this, I'd like to make a motion that we change this language to reflect no less than 6 council members.
Council,
City council,
members of city council.
members of city council.
We know what you mean.
Okay, auditors may, no, we may know what we mean, but the record has to reflect this. The internal, I'd like to make a motion that the internal auditor may be replaced by or terminated by the affirmative vote of no less than 6 city council members of city council.
Members of the city council, we have a motion by Andrew Caranco, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Christy Hale, any discussion?
Sorry, I just want to clarify
Yes.
that includes the mayor.
Yes, that
Okay.
includes the mayor.
Thank you.
It's been a-
Should we define the word supermajority right in the beginning of the document?
I don't think we need to, I think we just need to make sure that it says 6 members. It's understood that that's a supermajority.
Yeah.
I think we're using supermajority colloquially in this area.
Any
Unless,
other discussion? We have a motion and a second, call for the vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed, the ayes have it.
Maria?
Mr. Caranco, yes, sir.
in the spirit of streamlining things, also, again, in city manager, city council by affirmative vote of no less than 6 members shall appoint a city manager. I believe that this should be reflected to 6 city council members. However, actually, no, I'd like to,
Members of the city,
no, actually, I'd like to rescind that motion. I think the removal, actually, I'd like to ask for a discussion point here.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, what's the question?
the removal of the mayor, whether
The
it should
appoint-
be.
The appointment of
Yeah,
the
the
city,
city
the appointment of the city manager, do we really need 6 people to vote on that? The question is, if I recall in the city manager and subsequently the attorney conversation, the question was never about the actual hiring of this. The hiring of that should be straightforward. It was the removal that we had the issue with the so-called supermajority. Insofar as if you're going to hire someone, the hiring should be a routine confirmation of what a committee or the city manager has established, because the council has appointed the city manager to make such an appointment as part of his job. The removal of these people is where the question is, particularly in, well, we're asking for the removal of like an auditor. The auditor should be fairly independent of all things. The city secretary, city attorney should reflect that. City manager in their hiring should be, the hiring of these people should be reflected upon a mere motion of continuality. Removing someone's a far larger thing.
Does it make any sense to make it consistent across the board with the removal of all these high-level positions? Just make it 6
Yes,
all the time?
that's the position I'm leaning toward.
Yeah.
But on the actual appointment of these people, I don't think we need 6.
So 5 in, 6 out.
Yes.
Since we're changing the 5 of the council members, so we include the mayor, right?
City council people, whatever that
Yeah,
language
yeah.
is going to be.
So then the removal is where you're
Yes, so
wanting to change, okay?
I'd like to clarify my motion and rescind whatever motion I may have started to make and bring that motion to section 3.03, removal of Article 3, city manager. The language should reflect by saying that the city manager shall not be appointed for a definite term, but may be removed at the will and pleasure of the city council by an affirmative vote of no less than 6 city council members.
Members of the city council.
Members of the city
Is
council.
that it? We can,
I'd like that motion to reflect the members of the city council to include the mayor, if the mayor is offered that opportunity to vote by the voters.
Second that motion.
We have a motion by Andrew Caranco. We have a second by Navides. We have, any discussion?
I'd like to just make a clarification that the spirit of this is to offer autonomy to these positions that may be manipulated by council if you have an unjust council in the future.
Greater degree of autonomy, yeah.
I'd like, and that's the only point I'd like to make.
I'm
Mr.
just gonna
Chair.
throw in a little comment. You know, we have to present this to city council to get it fast for them to,
Yes, sir.
okay, just making sure. We have a motion, no other discussion, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed, the ayes have it.
All right, the next one to discuss is the city attorney, section 4.02. And we sent legal to try and look into what would look like if this position was elected, but I don't know if anybody wants to discuss it.
Wait for the information.
Huh?
We'll just wait for the report
Right,
next week.
Professor? All right, the next one is.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Caranco.
Mr. Chair, 4.02, the same streamlining and uniformity issue here would be the affirmative vote of no less than 6 council members to be removed,
Members of the council, right,
members of the council.
okay,
Um,
for the removal
yes.
of the city attorney.
I would like to make a motion that the city attorney shall be, excuse me, I'd like to make a motion that on Article 4.02, city attorney, the city attorney shall serve until removed upon the recommendation of the city manager and the affirmative vote of no less than 6 council members.
Second that motion.
You have a motion by Andrew Caranco, seconded by Benavides. Any
If I may
discussion?
just, yeah,
Yes,
if I may just
Dr. Reyes.
ask for a little bit of wiggle room for me to be able to bring back the idea of election. So,
We'll revisit it when they bring us back the information.
yeah, but I would like his motion to be, if it
Oh.
stays the same,
Tabled,
exactly.
Additional.
Then you're asking for it to be tabled.
No. I would like him to include in his language, if it stays the same, so he will acknowledge the possibility of further discussion.
So it's conditional.
Wait, just as a little point of clarification, Dr. Reyes, if that becomes an elected position and 6 people vote to take him out, is that what you're saying? Then that would come into effect?
She's saying then that wouldn't
No.
apply.
I just would like, the motion is great. I just would like him to say, if this position stays
A
the same.
non-elected position.
Yeah. That's it, just to
it's a
add up to
non-elected
the motion.
position.
Yeah, if it stays as a non-elected position. Just to give me wiggle room to continue talking about making it an elected position.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I was
Rodriguez.
just gonna say, we're gonna have maybe 3 more special meetings besides the regular one for this coming month. At any point, anyone can bring up an item and make a motion again. And again, at the end, we'll have one final, and there'll be 3 more opportunities for you to make, I guess,
This-
I won't say the argument, but your concerns, express your concerns about having these elected.
Okay, I just
At
don't want
those
you to
points.
be surprised if I throw a fit.
No, I mean,
No, okay, you can just go for the vote.
Anyone could have.
at any point, you can always bring it back up and discuss it until the final version is gonna be,
Because
probably at the
eventually
last meeting.
it's gotta condense and I envision that we will have an agenda that we're gonna present. And I would like for us to have a united face when we come in to explain where this came from, field any questions that the city council or the mayor might have regarding that. Because that does have to be sold to them before it's sold to the city of Laredo.
So you can just bring it for a vote.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Dr. Reyes.
There's,
motion.
So
Mr.
we already
Chair,
had the motion, we had the second, call for the vote, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? None opposed, the ayes have it.
I have a question, not related to that specific motion, but still on this section, on whether we need to specify who the city attorney reports to.
It stayed out there, Ms. Benavides, in that he works with the city council, but technically he represents the city of Laredo. His view might not be, yet the guy that's evaluating him right now is the city manager, so how do you reconcile those?
Yeah, it's just a question.
It's a legitimate question, and it has a lot of ramifications. Remember, I used the example, I'm a bad city attorney, but I'm in good with Jack, who's my city manager. So I'll fall on the sword, you do me the evaluation, and we'll just keep going through that. And yeah, I could litigate, and we'll appeal it, and we'll get slapped down, but we'll buy some time track, we'll be okay. Because that is a dilemma. What if there is that cahoot? Now, there's also a lot of pride. Miss Hale was our city attorney. You know, that's a professional reputation you put out there, and their worst self ethics in that we go to the state bar, we're held to that standard, and it's like a little secret all attorneys have. It's tough to get that license. You do a lot to protect it, or you're going to risk it. It's the other side. And then I even wonder if you're running for office, sometimes what if there's not a big pool out there of people that's going, then how do we get past that point? I mean, these are just some of Tanya, in other words, that's a great point, but how do we balance that with all our other?
But I guess it depends on whether it's elected or if it's a city manager or a city council that appoints. That's why that information they get us, hopefully, we'll revisit.
Absolutely.
And it
I
used to
think
be
you'll have
elected
that.
back in the 70s.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Ojo, I think was,
That's right, that's right.
Perez was the last elected,
Yep.
city attorney.
We're still practicing, it's fine.
All right, the next one I have marked is section 8.06.
8, you said?
Article 8?
Section 8.06.
8.0.
Water, gas, electricity, and other essential services.
Yes, I believe that's the one where Mr. Vela talked about capping.
We're gonna get TML, or was that?
Yeah,
another one?
2% of water.
Yes, and Mr. Sunier wanted to hear what TML had to say.
My understanding that TML said they would not present, correct?
Correct, they don't have
Someone
those
was reaching
resources
out to
yet.
them and
They would not
be,
what?
Present.
They would not present?
Yeah.
Oh.
They don't have
My
those
understanding from
resources,
some.
yeah.
Well, I think we had other options, but
Yeah.
what if we asked questions, would they answer them like in writing?
that I don't know,
No,
I didn't
should
ask on that.
Sure, I believe so. We frequently.
But we can reach out to them, of
Reach
course,
out
if you have
for
specific
specific
questions.
Mhm.
And maybe during the week, if you wanna submit some specific questions, we can reach out and see if they'll be willing to give us an answer, and, if not, at least we can research.
I'll share, and I brought up that concern before. If this is charter review, you're talking about, I can't tell you what the water's gonna be like 20 years from now. And I've put in there, it's not like our founding fathers say, the price of gunpowder has to stay at this amount. That's a strange art. And you want legislators, you want people that are reacting to changes. I understand what Mr. Vela said, you don't want changes, but you're kind of getting mad at voters who voted for those people in office. You're going, you know what, I'm gonna jump ahead of you guys, I'm gonna be paternalistic, Dr. Reyes. I know better than you do, so this is for your own good. Well, that doesn't feel good, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think his
That's my
suggestion was capping,
Automatic,
Yeah.
this amount.
2%.
Percentage,
Percentage.
not amount, percentage.
And we visited also on some other, but my concern with that is We don't know what utility needs at the time, and why are you capping something right now?
But we know for a fact, for example, that our water is being reduced, that we may need a secondary source of water, and that there are people already buying water with the view of selling it to us. So, okay, so these things are already pointing at the necessity of addressing some of this. So,
But listen to what you're saying, Dr.
Yeah.
Reyes. So don't increase, we know everybody else is speculating, so what are you gonna do when everyone agrees we own the water and you can't increase
No,
the
but-
rate? What are you gonna do?
no, but that's
City?
why we invited we're trying to invite people to educate us on.
GML doesn't wanna come, the other seats are gonna look different,
Right.
we don't live in the river, you guys buy, water acreage from there. So we can address certain stuff, but again, I would caution, why are we going into that, Dr.
all I'm
Reyes?
doing-
Why am I telling utility 100 years from now, you
What
cannot
I'm
do
doing
this?
is reading the notes.
I know, no, I know, and I have
I
to,
haven't made an argument pro or against.
but
I
you did
just-
say there's people that are buying water,
Yeah.
so I'm addressing what you answered as a concern
No, I
going,
am saying that
there are
that
people.
Mr. Vela may be up to something when he's saying we may need to address this. And so that is all I'm saying. Because signs are already pointing towards that need. And so, I mean, I don't know, we left it up to later. Nobody,
Right, and that's why I was just sharing with you, I felt, uncomfortable just with that in that, again, I don't know if I could hamstring a utility company I've never met 20 years in the future, cause this has lived through the city charter. And I
So
don't know
could we-
what kind of.
Maybe, could we talk to the utilities company of Laredo?
What is it that you wanna know about
She wants to talk to
utilities?
Mr. Garcia, Arturo.
Yeah,
You
have they
can.
analyzed this section of the charter and maybe identified problems with it? You know, I mean, since we're accepting we don't know, right? Maybe those that do know, maybe they haven't even looked at it and they haven't identified issues with that part of the charter. I'm just saying, apparently we do need to talk to somebody about this, and that's if we decide to make a decision on this, right?
Because mine was, I don't need to talk to Mr. Garcia, but saying that I have reluctance to do a charter revision for a paternalistic reason for the future.
No, I'm talking about if we have an expert who's dealing with this structure, maybe they have already identified whether this allows them or doesn't allow them to make better decisions for our city, right? I
Do
mean,
you want to gamble? What do you think he's gonna say?
I don't wanna gamble, I wanna ask them.
That's why, but that's like a friendly way of going, what do you think he's gonna say
I don't know what he's
if you were a
gonna say.
department head?
I don't know what he's gonna say. I've met very prepared
I don't think,
bureaucrats in our city council to where I can ask them a question and they will tell me, if you look at this law, it stops us from doing this. If you look at that law, it allows us to do this. So I trust in their professionalism to inform me on whether they have read this and whether it is a well-constructed paragraph that allows them to be the best managers they can of our utilities. I don't see a problem with that.
it's not a problem, but what I'm trying to address is, I'm gonna pass a charter. I'm tired of college professors getting paid crazy salaries. They cannot go up on their salary, not 1%. I don't care how big their school gets. I don't care how big the demand is. And then I'm gonna call in the department head. What do you think you wanna do, department head? Cause you represent, I'm sure the department head's gonna go, I don't think you should hamstring the salary of the professors, cause we are
I
growing
just think we're on the
institution.
same page. Because I'm not arguing for what Mr. Vela said.
Yes, we are. I'm gonna tell you where we're not. My concern, guys, and I'll be honest with you, is there's not a lot of time left to go and meet and do some of the
I can
other
do it on my own
changes.
time and bring you the answers he gives me.
And vote and present it in here, and
Yeah,
I'm kind of saying, you know what, we're gonna have to focus. And again, if you want to bring Mr. Garcia, I'm sure he is an expert. He'll tell you everything about the city, the water plants, distribution, where's it lost, where's it stagnant, their plans, their pipes, replacements. Yes, Mr. Valdez.
So the concern, we're on, what, 8.06, is that correct?
yeah, 8.06.
And your question is,
My question wasn't a question. I just
or your
read my
comment
notes.
was?
That was one of the issues identified for us to address.
And my concern, I just brought it
You're
out
asking
was,
if there's an issue, because I've asked certain departments, let's look at the charter, if there are any concerns, he's never had a concern with that section. It allows the city to charge what we need to charge for infrastructure, for future growth, of the system. If you, again, and I'll use the words that, chairman said, hamstring the city and say you can't do this. Well, right now, we're trying to catch up for 50 years of water lines that weren't fixed, and so now there's major expenses. And
Right.
so it's not like we're just charging people and not spending the money. That money has to be identified where it's being spent, and we have independent auditors that come in and have to give us a review of where it's spent. Bond counsel also has to look at how we're spending the money. I don't think anybody's taking it home. And so if that's the concern, I don't know what the concern is,
No,
because here
Mr.
it allows you to be able to contract with a third party also, from what I can understand.
According to my notes,
Uh-huh.
in this section, Mr. Vela proposed the consideration of putting a 2% cap for increase on water utilities to the consumer. And if higher, it should be put to election. This is the comment Mr. Vela made. We didn't decide anything.
Okay.
We were going to,
Review that.
yeah, we were going to review it.
and I just shared just my concern with that being that there's a hamstring, so, and I didn't make a motion regarding that or
Right.
anything.
We
It
can
was
ask
just my
Mr.
concern.
Garcia or, I guess to come by for the next meeting. We'll make sure that he's here, or a
And-
representative from utilities to ask
And
if,
and if that's the concern, well, he would be the best person to tell Mr. Vela why that would be damaged, right? Since he's the one that brought up that issue.
You're
I'm-
saying,
I'm
you're
neither.
you're indifferent to this concern.
I'm
Absolutely,
indifferent.
she's just reading.
I
notes.
was afraid of the cap when he brought it up, right? Because I also asked him, where is this coming from? He's a politician.
Right.
What would sell the best? Capping. We don't want taxes, we don't want higher utilities.
Right.
Fantastic, but
That would go over well with the voters, thinking
Yes.
like a politician, yeah.
But I'm an administrator, right? Public administrator, I mean,
Okay, very good.
we'll revisit
but I
and bring
need your
Mr. Garcia.
comments here, I also noted them here. Sure. All right, so the next one I have highlighted is 9.03. Oh no, wait, I skipped. 9.02 City Planning and Zoning Commission. And the comments were how many directors may be dismissed by the city attorney. They were concerns about the language that is aspirational. The number of votes should be changed to a supermajority, especially when it comes to, there were concerns about power inequalities. That's it, that's all I have. Jack,
Yes, sir,
go
Mr.
ahead with
Palanco.
the members of zoning committee.
Mr. Chair, one of the issues we brought up in this last time was the necessity for city council to actually have a say over the hiring and planning and zoning director in regards to the auditor, the attorney, the secretary, and manager, obviously. We understood the need for that sort of oversight on those independent parties for balance. All that said, we did question the validity of having this particular section in here. I don't remember if we had asked the city attorney's office to investigate whether that was by state statute or not, but that may be one of those suggestions here.
I believe
Personally,
that was it. And the aspirational language says shall to must, aspirational is shall, must is mandatory.
yeah, I mean, and as someone who works in this industry, it's also, you know, I want to make, you know, I do work in development. It's just something that never really quite sure why it was determined by council. It seems like it's something the city manager deals with.
At some point.
And just so you guys know, Jack also kind of brought up this issue of why the zoning committee doesn't require that members come from different districts.
I think, but I think Ms. Hale had the answer to that.
Because there's not always enough people in the district willing.
That satisfied me. I think it's a good answer.
Yes, sir,
Okay,
Mr.
I'm
Cannon?
gonna say satisfied.
I had a further question. We did get clarification on section 9.04, implementation of comprehensive plan. I would like the committee, though, to contemplate and meditate on the addition of perhaps another section here concerning the long-term plan. The comprehensive plan, as we discussed, is really in regards to the day-to-day operations of this department, which is
Tactical, and
strategic, fine, and necessary. In development, though, we do need something that's a little more idealistic and visionary, as opposed, in addition to a comprehensive plan. I would like to invite us to contemplate the addition of section 9.06 in regards to the implementation of a long-term comprehensive plan, or words to that effect, concerning particularly the Viva Laredo plan, that the department should be, that every 5 or 10 years, depending on how we would like to adjust that, that such a plan be reviewed and readopted by the city. The comprehensive plan, again, as specified in here, is more for the internal machinations of the department. I would like to see this charter compel our city to look more diligently at longer-term plans that would affect the overall development and sustainability of our development in our community.
5 to 10 years is good.
5 to 10 years, depending on that. Most cities, well, actually, I'm not going to say that because I don't know, but 5 to 10 years is about standard. And we,
do 5 and a strategic, tactical, and it's the most immediate 6 months.
I will say, as a developer, the Viva Laredo plan has been tremendously helpful in determining how we develop in our city, and it's made us far more sustainable than it was before we adopted that plan. So I'm thinking in terms of sustainability without saying sustainability.
Excellent.
To that point,
Do you want to add a language now at this time, or is it something you would like to then present as a motion to add on?
I'm going to ask for your direction, Mr. Chair, on this.
Okay.
And the reason for that is considering this is pioneering language in this document that has not been implemented before and is certainly different than what we're amending here. I'm not sure if that's something that we as the committee need to come up with, if we need to consult the ever-busy city attorney on this, or I'm not quite sure how we need to address this.
Could I share? I thought.
Can I just?
Yes, Dr. Reyes,
yeah.
you go ahead and share, and then I'll tell you about the 5 years.
I want to tell you what we had asked legal to do, and that is, can we add some teeth to this section? And someone also asked if the planning and zoning plan is published, and can it be correlated with the Viva Laredo plan?
I can answer that. So the plans are very public. You can, and if they're not online, the planning and zoning department is wonderful. You can go in there, knock on the door, and they'll give you whatever you want to in a very, very quick time. The issue is going in there and grabbing it. Development's a pretty complicated thing because you have multiple levels of development you have to worry about. So in this case here, it's more, we're dealing with more visionary and long-term issues that we do talk about very often in the development world, but we don't necessarily, sometimes you have to compel people to work on that, and putting in the charter is a really great vehicle for that.
Well, if I may, Mr. Caranco, I thought that's what you were doing, because I go, wow, maybe he's very intelligent here with 5 years. Why 5 years? 4 years is the elected official's term cycle, if you look at the longest one. So you're actually talking about stuff beyond everybody's term there, and they're going, this is what we're shooting for. and then everything else gets adjusted in. It helps, I could tell you, my personal take, look at the problems with our immigration. Both parties have come up with, but they don't have one plan that, you know what, we're all gonna live by this, because if we're doing exceptions, then it doesn't work. Well, I go under this section, no, I go under this one, I did this modification. You want people, okay, let's do a 10-year plan, this is how we're gonna stay and commit to that.
Yeah,
Especially in development, I'm sure.
Well, in development, you need to, because if I'm gonna put a
Infrastructure,
street
how-
there or a pipe there, you've gotta know what's going on here, and
The arteries have to be functioning.
exactly. Viva Laredo plan, I understand, is 10 years as a viewpoint, and maybe some politicians may not want to adhere to a 10-year plan, so a 5-year plan may be adequate. That's probably something we should consult the Planning and Zoning Department and the MPO on that. We can consult Juan
The
Mendive.
MPO specialty.
But I think that it's important to include in the city charter here.
Wants to come up with some language.
I think that we should. And I think that we can also consult the Laredo Council, the Real Estate Council of Laredo, who are also engaged. We want to create a Laredo that's sustainable and buildable, because if we develop at an unrelenting pace like we have on Mines Road, we're going to get more Mines Roads out there. If we think about this more responsibly, we don't have to worry about that in the future.
So if I understand, we should revisit this and then,
Yes, I'm saying that let's revisit that. Maybe, if I may ask that the committee here would support a motion to direct the city secretary and the city management and attorney to come up with language commensurate with the idea that we're proposing here, consulting both P&Z and MPO, and probably RMA on that.
okay? Any discussion or any second of that motion?
I'll second.
We have a second by Christy Hale. Any discussion?
I can also add, just because we're discussing this doesn't mean we have to adopt it. It's
Absolutely. You're giving a directive here under a motion for them to look into bringing it in compliance with those.
right.
With that being said, no other discussion, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? None opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Yes, excellent.
Yes.
Dr. Reyes?
Next one. All right, the next one is gonna be I think it's G, section G of 10.06. I have a mark of this has potential for trouble in the incumbent options and redistricting changes.
I would just like to note that we're passing over section 10.06A, the discussion about the number of city council districts. I know
Yeah.
we mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, I don't know if you were here yet, Judge, but we talked about how we would return to that.
Okay, no, I'm glad you brought it up, because I already feel.
Anyway, that's just a comment
We probably want more folks here.
for
Absolutely.
that discussion.
Noted. So then, we do look now at G. Do we want to do something?
I don't know, because I don't have any major notes, just that have potential for trouble. But if you move to, we also discuss districts, blah, 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 yeah, okay, we can skip all of that.
Okay.
Then we move to section 11.02, and there was a motion, I think it was passed, right?
Yeah, it was in 11.1.
That was a big deal, remember? It was,
Yeah.
Mr. Vela says, I actually created it, now I want to.
That was a great moment
do
for
it.
a
I'm like,
teaching
okay.
moment.
I would like to submit something just for,
Yes, sir.
just for consideration, not a change to the change was 10% of registered voters to 10% of voter turnout, right?
Mhm.
And considering the low voter turnout in Laredo, especially in some districts already, I just wanted to float the possibility that maybe having changed it to 10% of the voter turnout is then 10% of that number, which is gonna be very much smaller. Is it gonna be too small? At that point, maybe raise the percentage to 15, 20, 25, I don't know. It's just something that occurs to me. It's not something I'm passionate about, if the original problem is too few people making decisions for the whole,
Yeah, now you're getting even
Now-
smaller.
now we're getting
It could
even
affect
smaller.
continuity.
right.
Well,
Now, how many people are required to recall, it might be, I don't wanna change it back to percent of registered
no,
voters.
this is a good point, and well, I do wanna just bring to light too, that this is just for a recall election,
Yeah,
right? So people still have
They
to
still have
turn
to
out
vote.
to the election.
uh-huh.
This is considering
Oh, I
the
see.
legwork that it
But
takes.
still, Ms. Benavides, what
Well,
do you
then
think?
I
That
would-
you just won and then, no, I'm gonna trip her up now.
No, I wanna consider this, but I think it's all about the numbers, right?
Yeah.
So then I would move, for us to get information on the voter turnout over the last 4 elections, maybe, to get like a good number, a good sense of what that number would be, and
And
if
do you
10%
want
is
all of
low.
them, or would it be more fair that we find the smallest selection, and then I could tell you, okay, that's this district, 2,000, and what you're talking about there is 400 votes that show up.
Right.
If you get 400 signatures, you're gonna have a real
Have a
election.
challenge
It's
again.
still tough to
And
get
they are
250
expensive still, but-
Is it, this information should be,
It's
there must be a record of it somewhere
there is.
easily.
Yeah,
The state
their
of
website.
Texas
Easy
still
to
has all
find.
the election
We could probably Google
results.
this right now somewhere.
yeah, it's in their
I can tell you
website.
just off the top, I mean, some
Mr. Valdez,
districts.
yes, sir.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Some districts, low end, you're gonna have 2,000 voters, if you're lucky.
Voter
So
turnout.
10% of that's 200 signatures to get somebody out. And that's just the number of the people that voted last time. Doesn't mean only the ones that voted get to sign that petition to recall. Can be anybody that's registered, that's just the number of how many you need, right?
Yeah.
And so compared to how many registered are, let's say 25,000. So 10% of that, yeah, it's 2,500, which is a lot harder. So I even, when this was discussed last meeting, I was thinking, okay, it's good to go back to those that voted, but maybe raise the percentage. Because the reality is, you normally get that amount in that, let's say, I'm talking about the districts, District 7 where I used to run.
Yeah.
So you're looking at, on a good race, maybe 4,000, but then you get a runoff, and it says of where the person was elected. And so they're elected in a runoff, which is a lot less, almost half. And so you're still looking at 2,000 votes. And so I would just say you all should consider maybe, and I was even thinking like 15% or something like that of those that voted, just to get the number a little bit higher, because 200,
Just
and I'll use a comment that, I think at the time Mr. Bali mentioned when they were looking to change it, you don't want your golf buddy to be able to go and recall somebody, a small group. Because that doesn't make sense either, because then that could be abused also. And so maybe a percentage of those that voted from 10, maybe going a little bit higher. Just for consideration, or you can leave it there. At the end of the day, it gives more power to me if somebody doesn't behave, I can go grab 200 people easily.
And they don't
And I'll
have to be
do it
interested
again
in
tomorrow,
politics. They
and
could be
again,
anybody.
and again.
Well, they have to be registered
have
with
to
that
be
district,
registered.
but
They have to be
easier.
registered, but they don't necessarily have to have an interest, right? They could be,
200 registered signatures of whoever. I can get a family of 4 or 5 that are registered, that's 5 votes really quick. I can get 200 really easy. If that's in that district, some other districts have better turnout, so it'll be a little bit more. 4,000 votes, I wanna say like
You
the
do
district
entirely
said.
of the minority, so 201, and I'm just gonna keep doing it to you, Jack. Until you finally get tired, I'm gonna do it again tomorrow, and do it again, till I bleed.
It's every 6 months, so they can't do it in the first 6 months of the term, and they can't do it in the last.
Last,
But they can
in
do it in between, okay, 6 months and 1 day, they're gonna try to recall you. Then they have to wait, I think, 6 months again, and then they can try to recall you. 6 months, they can try to recall. I mean, that can happen. I'm not saying it's ever happened,
it's possible.
but it could, theoretically.
Wow. People are lazy.
Yeah.
But I do think we should consider, open to whatever suggestions people have from upping that percentage a little bit more.
I wanna keep that, can we put an asterisk that we had a question on the 10%, and we possibly going higher, and our concern was for continuity. Okay, that's a very healthy discussion, a very focused one. I like that.
All right. The next ones was the same issue of having to do with signatures to petition.
And I think that one, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Reyes, wasn't Mr. Souvenier brought it up, whether they're checked or verified, and it was brought up by Mr. Valdez, where, no, the state secretary, we actually do go look up these
Right,
and make sure
right.
these are.
Allow me to check.
Okay,
This one, sorry, we're in what section?
1102.
1102?
but we can go to whatever section you want.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Well, did you have anything else before 11.11?
11.11, no?
Okay. I just wanted to protect the 10% change in 11.11 because this would be citywide.
Right.
So I think that, you know, we've seen in other localities where groups of concerned citizens bring about ordinances and referendums on the ballot, and they do the legwork of getting petitions and filing the process and putting things on the ballot that perhaps wouldn't otherwise be considered by council. So I think in this case, 10% is reasonable of the last turnout, given that it's citywide.
And Ms. Benavides, remember, what, at least my discussion with Mr. Pine was the anomalies, when you're finding those little strange ones, yeah, I could manipulate that one, or I could manipulate that one, but I think when you look at the city, there's that protection of, it's a big creature. Yes, sir, Mr. Conoco, you had a,
Why don't we just divide it between the regions? If it's a district, then it's 15%. If it's citywide, it's 10%, or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
split the baby there. That would be satisfactory.
I'm willing to, that sounds reasonable, and that seems to jive with what we're just talking about. Excellent.
So if I'm clear, then on the recall, we put two sections, districts 15, municipal court judge and mayor's
Do you
position
want to,
10?
do y'all feel comfortable with already going into that number?
Is 15, is 15 is good with everybody?
It feels good.
For both?
No.
Or just the way, district 15, 10?
Right, for citywide, and that's the mentality of the difference being, there's not an anomaly when you're looking at the greater structure of the city.
Shall I make a motion?
Yeah, why
I would think that's a good motion.
So I'll make a motion to revise the motion from previous meeting so that section 11.1 reflects a requirement of 10% of voters who voted in a previous citywide election to file a petition to propose a recall election, and a 15% of voter turnout in a district election to propose a recall election.
Seconded.
We have a motion by Tanya Benavides, we have a second by Jack Bynum. Any discussion? No discussion, call for the vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed, the ayes have it. Excellent. Is there anything else, or?
I'm looking. Okay, the next section I have notes on is 12.01. Personal financial interest. And I think we instructed legal to look into the laws, the ethic laws and regulations to figure out how we can put teeth behind this. That's all I have.
Teeth, I guess enforcement teeth into
Yeah.
the financial interest, make sure that there's not a violation or.
Yeah, how can we enforce it?
And I think we talked about how in the following section that the Ethics Commission is either undergoing or is about to undergo their review of the code to be able to provide recommendations for
Those
enforcement.
teeth where it can actually enforce. If that's taken care of, then that's going to be your answer for 12.1, then,
And
It- because that stayed pending, that's true, so do you want to put this as pending our discovery of, how do you put it, enforcement
Depending on
powers.
what?
On
Enfor-
the review from the Ethics Commission.
Review from Ethics
Who's gonna,
Commission.
Mr. Chairman?
And like enforcement, yes, sir, Mr. Valdez.
Just in section B, I mean, it says, any violation of this standard of conduct shall cause a forfeiture of office and or employment with the city. And this is, every officer or employee, that's not just elected officials, it's anybody here that works here, if you're in a conflict of interest and they catch you, you lose your job. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, or,
Well, we were waiting on answers according to my notes. And like, Ms. Benavides said. All right, the next one is 12.04 nepotism. Should we consider 9 months? And we noted that it may be necessary to explicitly highlight commissions with decision-making authority.
Oh, yeah, if you appoint someone that has the decision making, but it's part of the nepotism problem,
the boards.
yeah.
Yeah,
And we went to 9 months, I think was the motion that was approved by the commission.
It was approved.
Yes.
From 2 years to 9 months.
okay, then, the next section. That's it.
I want to bring something back into conversation.
Yes, Mr. Valdez.
Just to emphasize that, there are many things that we did ask legal to bring us more recommendations on, but, want to have our own conversation if y'all are interested in section 6.12. Borrowing. And so this is, in regards to specifically the power of council to borrow money for discretionary funds. I know that right now the language is very open, right? Basically, they get to determine what is in the public interest. And for some reason, the amount of discretionary funds and how that has been growing or not, limited and protected as much as we would like to see as concerned citizens falls into this power. So also subsequently, the total overall outstanding debt shall be limited to 10% of the assessed valuation of the city. And while I don't know that number off the top of my head, would be interested in knowing what that number is and what amount is right now a part of that debt that has gone to discretionary funds.
Okay.
It's a great question.
And if nobody has any conversation on that, I would just like to again reiterate that, this is something that we want more information.
How does the charter review feel even about discretionary, because you, I believe Mr. Miller said none. And does anyone feel like a positive for having it? I'll share a positive is that it's quick acting. I came under, my district, it's all about, you fill in the blank there, you know, it's about birding, and I really want to put mine into that. Well, I'm responsive, and it's quick acting, you're not waiting for federal, programs. And then there's also certain districts that qualify for the federal programs. They go, hey, why does Christie get? And I, well, okay, well, I can put together through discretionary funds. So I think it is a valuable tool, and it does give you some independence from the city manager in that it's your call how you're gonna use it for your district, and you are responsible to your district.
And if, I'm trying to remember the conversation that we had, but was it, well, part of the conversation was it so valuable a tool that we should be permitted to borrow money for the sake of those discretionary funds? Was that part of it?
Cause that was
Right.
part of it, we saw, yeah, and, well, that's what Ms. Benavides was also asking, how much is the amount that they're putting together?
Yeah, the argument you've just made for discretionary funds is, I think that's a good argument. But should the city be able to borrow for that purpose only? Maybe not. I don't know. Borrowing seems like something you should do if you have to do it, right?
If I'm city manager, remember, I'm gonna give you guys, I'm like that strange dad that's not really there, so I wanna give you all credit cards and spend whatever y'all want, daddy's got it, I'd give you, yeah. You're gonna like me more, daddy, okay.
Can someone
that
then, I
works.
guess, at the next meeting bring us an explanation how that works, or if that's being done?
Yeah, and that way we know, are we
Are we
indebting
doing
ourselves, because daddy's giving away the phone.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they want to know how they're getting their funding for discretionary funds, and is it tied to, she
borrow.
said, yeah.
Bonds and things?
Right now, as far as I know, it is tight. I think the previous year they got $1 million each district, and I think this current one is 750,000. That
And-
sticks out in my head.
And that's taken on credit, so
Yeah,
to speak.
it's all borrowed money right now, through
So
bonds.
concerns on the bonds.
But you have to identify what you're gonna use the money, it's brick and mortar, sidewalks, a building, stuff like that. And so there are some restrictions of how you can use that money also. It's not just spending on whatever I want. But you identify projects and then they say, okay, these are the, cause you can skin the cat different ways. You can say, okay, we're gonna borrow that, or I know I'm gonna spend all my discretionary fund, just an example on sidewalks. Okay, you're not gonna give me any, okay? I motion to have a sidewalk project in my district for this amount. Council approves it. Different ways of doing it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're tied to, from my understanding is that they're tied to specific brick and mortar type, projects.
You still want to see.
And it's up to council, whatever they wanna do. In other words, it's, really, there's no process of, this is our bonding capacity. These are the things we need, and if council wants discretionary funds, well, the city manager may suggest an amount, right, for each one. It could be $0 to $1 million or whatever. And then they're gonna decide, yes, we want, it's a tight budget. Okay, this year maybe we'll just do, each one 200,000. I think there was a limit that Mr. Vela had mentioned. I think y'all approved that limit also. Total, no more than $1 million. I think was what sticks in my head from the last meeting.
He was looking for a hard number.
Yeah, and so I know that was discussed, but really that's the process at this point.
And remember he was talking about, we're getting bond money and we're spending it now. It's a 20-year bond and we burned through that car in 1 year. So what are we going to do? Year or two
after
through
year.
19 now. We have to replace that.
Not only that, right? The more we borrow, the more it affects our credit standing, right?
Yes. The more expensive it gets to borrow. Our credit score goes down. Our rating. Yes. Opposite.
I was shocked when I heard
Did
that.
you want to know how much the amount was? If I understood you correctly, Ms. Benavides, you want to say if it's tied to our economic, our GI, our gross economic index, or whatever we're getting.
Normally, the way the process is right now is the financial advisor will come in and tell us, okay, this year you guys have the bonding capacity of X number of millions of dollars. And then we work it backwards. Okay, departments need to buy vehicles. Okay, do we put them on these long-term loans if the vehicles aren't gonna last long? Okay, we'll do short-term. And the finance advisor will tell us, okay, these are the type of monies you can borrow based on our credit, based on what we have out there that we're already spending on our budget. We can pay this amount of money, which will allow us to borrow X millions of dollars, right, to bond. And so from there, then we start working it backwards. Okay, council, again, every budget's different. This is a tight budget. We're gonna get bond money, so of $15 million, maybe $3 million will be for your type of projects, or none of it. We're recommending that, everything be spent on these other projects that the departments need right now.
I think a concern that was brought up,
Right.
and if I'm wrong, Ms. Benavides, was just, it's also on projected growth. We were gonna have 400 or 1,000 new houses, development, we hit a slump, now we're affected, and they got into more debt, cause now the numbers are going to
I
look
think it's
bad.
based on the tax rate. In other words, we get the tax information from, the Webb County Appraisal District. And so we calculate, I think it's 96% that we're gonna come in with taxes. So we figure the revenues are coming in, and then that's what we can, these are our payments. It's like a household. This is what revenue comes in, and this is what we're paying on our debt. How much can we borrow this year? And that's how
that
we kind of
96,
figure it.
it's a state number, they give it to State of Austin. If the tax assessor's underneath, they can actually take away the roles from him and control and go, you're no longer in charge of us.
And we try to, analyze the growth, but at the end of the day, it's what the
Happy to
reality
control
is of monies coming in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Linda?
Yeah, I guess just, and I understand obviously that there's bonds needed for different purposes. I think I was just zoning in on the discretionary money because is the use of that money audited, right? Is it clear what that money is being spent
Yes.
on? And if
It
those
is.
are the
And
answers.
is it necessary as well?
Is it
Because from a public perspective, right, I am allowing my city to use money to then sell me why I should elect somebody, and I'm paying for that. It seems a silly cycle, and I'm not even aware of the debt I'm incurring by allowing somebody to sell me themselves. It's like crazy.
I'm gonna throw a party for you, Dr. Reyes.
Please.
And I'm gonna sell your stuff in the garage so super cheap. It's like, no, he threw me a great party, but I sold all your
Yeah, all
stuff,
your
so
stuff.
you wound up with nothing. You got the.
Exactly.
We had a good party.
But we had a good
We
party.
had a heck of a party.
Watch out for the party.
And that's after, and we lost our deposit, so we're okay. That's the next guy's problem. We're gone. No, I'm being facetious, but you're correct. That is one of the issues right there. That he says a little vicious circle. Oh yeah. Anything else, or
I think the city attorney and the management have some research to do
Yeah.
to say?
for our next meeting, which should be set when, Mr.
We're gonna have a special one, I think, the first week, but I'll clarify that in the text to everyone.
Can you already set up like all the special meetings or like projected so that?
I know we had talked last meeting, so I'll make sure we have that one, and we have the regular scheduled, which is the third, Tuesday of the month. And then I think we'll try to get some other ones in there, and I'll text everyone their availability and your calendars.
I really.
And then I'll
have
figure
for
out.
tomorrow, guys. I
will not
Oh,
be,
But we'll do that as soon as possible, so that you all can set up your schedules.
I will not be here on the third Tuesday of next month, for the record.
Is that the Michigan?
No, this is a conference out on the West Coast.
Oh no, blow that one off. I'm more interested on your Michigan.
You want to go to an antique fair?
Yeah, that one that you talk about sounds amazing.
Largest one in the nation.
But I'll reach out to everyone, if you all can give me your calendar days when you'll be available, and then we'll figure out when we can have a quorum, and we'll do another special meeting.
And if I can just ask that ahead of the next meeting, similar to how you all send minutes ahead for us to review, if it would be possible when the agenda gets posted for us to also get that comprehensive report that we're getting back from all the research that we
We'll
asked.
try
so
to
we
get it
can
by the next meeting.
Review it.
Oh, I would
Ahead
hope
of
that you
time.
get it by the next.
I was
Mr.
hoping.
Walter will have it by the next meeting.
We'll try to get you to it as
Get meeting
possible.
notice, we're good.
Yeah.
With that, does anybody want to make
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
We have a motion by Andrew Caranco. Any
I
seconds?
second.
I was looking that way, but okay, we're gonna get to Jack. No discussion, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
For the record, it's 8:15 and we are done.
We